and they say it was.
Hello, my friends. Hello, my family. We are back again. And yes, ma'am, speak truth. That's exactly what we say here on this network. And I love her strategy of going on the offensive. I don't know if you guys can hear the reporters, but it was like, is it true that you take Russian money? Don't you condemn Putin? And she was like, what do I look like? What do I look like being black in America, being a member of the working class in this country, not having my eyes on the right target? We are the largest penal colony, ran and controlled by billionaire capitalists who have a monopoly and a dictatorship over this country. Yeah, Jim Crow Joe bombing Somalia for the third time this summer. We're going to talk about that today as well. Yeah, Jim Crow Joe, they're arresting more people for weed than Donald Trump did, 25% more. But you guys want us to have Putin derangement syndrome? I love that video. I love that there's so many young black radicals everywhere firing people up. And we were just one of many. Like, we just had Black Power Media on this week. And now we're going to have more collaborations with Black Power Media, not just on YouTube, but they are great organizers. And we're going to talk about some organization collaborations we're going to do. So speaking of collaborations, Kid, let me know when you're ready. Give me a thumbs up. This is about to be a great episode, guys. One of my favorite people to talk to, friends of RBN. I think your device is disconnected. We have Kit from Heartland's Media. Okay, Kit, try to refresh. I think your camera just disconnected. Try to refresh when you get a chance, Kit. There we go. Kit's going to be back. But we got a great day today because Kit from Heartland's Media. Big shout out to my friend Didi. I see you in the chat. We got a lot of great people in the chat today. A lot of great friends of the show. I'll put any world leader over Joe Biden. I'm not exaggerating. Yeah, that girl is straight up fire. Love her energy. And I want to start this out on the right place, right? Because we got my great friend Kit Cabello. You know, man, he killing the game in Heartland's Media. How you doing, brother? How you doing?
It feels good to be on your show today, and I'm in a much better mood. But mind you, I try and wake up early in the morning to do my morning run. But, when I woke up this morning, my cell phone, like all of our cell phones, usually give us alerts. And I noticed the YouTube studio icon on my phone. And I'm thinking, oh no, I don't want to start my morning off like
this again.
Yes, for the 7th time in a row, Heartland's Media received a strike for saying that we violated the community guidelines because apparently we said that the 2020 election was wrong and that Biden is not president, even though I didn't say those fucking words out of my goddamn mouth. This is the second time YouTube.
Why they do that if you didn't say it?
Because the video in question, we were talking about how Brianna Joy Gray was on the Vanguard saying she's no longer feeling the burn. Then we also talked about how, again, TYT failed to smear Jimmy Dore. And then we had the wonderful Bank sisters on our show. Now, we did mention the 2016 and 2020 Democratic primary where the DNC committed election fraud, denied their Bernie Sanders nomination, to which, again, Bernie Sanders let happen in the first place because he's spineless, nutless cuck wonder. That's who he is. That's always what he will be because he let that happen. But when it came down to the general election, look, I do know this. The reason why we got Trump in 2016 is because the Clintons told Trump to go ahead and run, and corporate media gave Trump, billions of dollars worth of free press. And then in 2020, the reason why Biden won is because so many people had Trump derangement syndrome. But on top of that, when you look at it, when you look at the results, Biden won by the skin of his teeth. So throughout that entire episode, and thank goodness for Rockfin and Odyssey, we have those 2 videos to show, hey, YouTube, we didn't say that Biden wasn't president. But then again, this is our 7th time correcting the record with YouTube. Go ahead. Sorry.
They say that China and Russia are restrictive authoritarian states because they will crack down on reporters that question the state narrative. So my question to you guys, even if Kit went on this show and said, I think the 2020 election was rigged, how is that even a violation? Like, you see how we are state TV now? The same thing they say we can't do in China and Russia, they say we can't do here. You can't question there are lines that you have. Like, there's lines in the sand in China, there's lines in the sand in Russia. We got lines in the sand in this country. You're not allowed to question certain narratives.
I would say the whole idea of free press, of independent media, of journalism, especially in a country where the First Amendment, not the Second Amendment, but the First Amendment says the right to free speech. That is fundamentally important to any democracy, any republic, anywhere that has a constitution that where its representatives are quote unquote elected by the people. And I'm saying the United States elected by the people, but we all know how our politicians are truly elected. It's because the corporations who buy and own our politicians in the Democratic Republican Party. But when it comes down to free speech, I'd say your analysis is on point because we are witnessing firsthand so many independent media networks being silenced, being suppressed. Now, we won. I am so happy Hard Lens Media won because, one, we take care of FaZe, our editor, who has done phenomenal work for our show. The reason why you're saying I'm killing it, it's because of the man behind the board that I'm happy to pay. Hard Lens Media is a business, and we have a team of people and commentators that we have on so that we could, one, pay them for their time, and two, take care of them because they're making us look really good, and we are having a great audience. We have a great outreach. But when YouTube gives us a strike, that puts the fear of God in my heart because, oh no, I can't take care of my people. I can't take care of my business. I can't take care of FaZe. And I can't take care of this team of interns that we're building up because we want to do some field work for Chicago Corner, our other YouTube channel, and to a greater extent, do some possible field work in the future for Hard Lens Media. We're not going to do what TYT did, where they say, oh, give us $2 million, and we'll raise it 4 horsemen in pockets. No. We're going to start off small, and we're going to build it up. Because every time Hard Lens Media has made a promise, we've always followed through to our patron supporters and to our subscribers. But when YouTube does this, this is a gut check, and it delays our operations. It suspends us from trying to do things, and we're once again in the fight for our lives. So I believe in building up strong independent media networks. I believe in building up a strong team, and I believe in supporting the First Amendment. Are there bad people that abuse the First Amendment? Yes. Yes, there are. But I believe that the world is filled with good people. And I believe in being consistent. On my show, I believe in being consistent with statements that I say. I'm all for direct democracy, election integrity. But I'm also going to say this. I want to see more people like you, Nick, across this country. I want to see more people like Savvy Savs. I want to see more people like Fiorella. I want to see more people like Jimmy Dore. I want to see more people like Nick, or said your name, Compton J. I want to see so many others out there speaking truth to power all across this country because we need independent media. It's time for the people to step up. It's time for this people to speak up and actually cover the stories that's happening in their backyard that you're not going to see on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. But here comes a set. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
No, my bad. I love how you bring that up because I want to make your point. I'll pass right back to you as well. That's why I got started in this. And the establishment managed to convince people that journalism is something only the elites can do. And it's wild that they pull that off. So, for example, in attacking Julian Assange, a lot of government bootlickers, they say, well, Julian Assange can't publish that information. He's not a journalist. He's not a reporter. And my response to those people is, what does that mean?
He is a journalist. He's a journalist. He's a publisher. He is wrongly being imprisoned in the Belmarsh prison. Julian Assange, and again, saying his name on YouTube, it's on par with saying something racist or profane word.
And you get deranked. Like if you know how the algorithm works, if you talk about certain stuff, you'll get deranked. You got to see it on people with YouTube channels where they have nothing but Trump content. Then they have Trump thumbnails, and they get like 200.
TYT.
There are a lot of them out there, man. And then they are pushed by the algorithm by doing that. You also pushed by the algorithm if you talk about drama a lot. But if you do a segment about Israel bombing Gaza the same way I did, they will derank you. There's certain things you can't talk about. But sorry, Kate, go ahead.
So here's the thing. Number one, I think we should all celebrate, especially when one of us in independent media gets a strike or a warning removed, or we're no longer shadow banned, or we're fully monetized. I think that's great. Now, Hard Lens Media, we're fully monetized. Great. We got our strike removed. Awesome. We still have a warning, though, on us, even though that video was deleted by YouTube, and we can no longer really appeal that warning. And when I even confronted YouTube about that, they said there's nothing we can do. And I know I talked to Daniel, I know I talked to FaZe, and I know I even looked at myself, and I know none of us deleted that video because YouTube will delete videos. They might reinstate your channel, but they will delete your videos. But here's another sad part. Again, 7-time win. Where's my trophy? Over YouTube. But there are channels like yourself. There's channels like Sabrina's channel. There's other small growing channels. There was a Slow News Day, Convo Couch. So many people have been unfairly shadow banned, demonetized, or channels been destroyed. And you know something? YouTube goes after predominantly Black, Latino, women commentators that are covering stories that CNN and Fox News and CBS are afraid to cover.
Well said. And just house cleaning, we got Max Blumenthal that he will join us in the next hour. So we got Kit for the first hour, and then we got Max that will be joining us as well. So we got Savvy Sabs in the house as well. I want to read the super chat, and we get around to the first comment. One thing I want to say, this is how they censor, and I've seen people they downplay this. Well, they say, "Oh, you got your YouTube channel pulled, man. That's it." You guys heard what Kid just said. He got a staff of people that he got to compensate. A lot of people got family to feed. So if you want to stop people from speaking out on certain topics in this capitalist country where money rules, you take away their income source. We covered the African reporter that called out Jen Psaki in the Biden administration, and in response, they took away his stripe. They took away his ability to make money. So in this country, we censor the same way that you would accuse an authoritarian country like China or Russia of doing. We just take away the monetary power that we have in our country, the capital, the money, the power, the influence. You get put on blacklists. You know, if you're a careerist, you're not allowed to go certain places. You talk about certain things. And then if that's not enough to persuade you, like me and Kid, like we don't give a fuck, they'll just take down your way to make revenue and way you make money. And that's terrifying. That's how they censor.
So, it is terrifying, and I just want to add on. I know you got
no. Go ahead.
I'll keep it short because I know this is your show, man. But it is terrifying for me because when we started in 2017, we had a Galaxy S7 cell phone, and we were on the streets of Chicago. We weren't on radio. We weren't on TV. We didn't even have a real YouTube channel. We started from nothing, and now we got this great studio. We invite you, Nick. I know you're coming to Chicago, and you'll see where we're at right now. But anytime there's some point where YouTube's going to give us a strike, or dare I say it, demonetize or shadow ban us, or worse, I'm wondering, oh God, can I still take care of my team? Can I still take care of FaZe? Can I still take care of this team that I want to build up? Because there's a lot I want to do. There's a lot of original content I want to do in order to build up Hard Lens Media and Chicago Corner, because I believe in the work. I love the work. And I want others like yourself to step up too. This is a tough career. This is a tough thing to do. But YouTube doesn't make it easier when they automatically start giving strikes or demonetization when we're covering truths of power. And mind you, corporate media has committed more lies, more misinformation than I ever have.
That's exactly the point. That's exactly the point. It's cracking down on dissent. It's not about fighting misinformation. There's no biggest arbiter of misinformation than what you see on TV. We're going to cover a segment on Fox here soon. But I want to show you guys this story because we dabbled a bit in Julian Assange. You can react to the story if you want, Kid.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you guys know how we do. We just have free flow conversation here. So I love ranting with you, my friend. So we covered this before, but I would love to get your thoughts on this. The United States cracked down on Julian Assange, even though the main evidence and the main person they used to gather evidence against Julian Assange is a self-admitted liar, a pedophile, a criminal, a crook. And then now you got the CIA trying to kill Julian Assange, which that proved Julian Assange's defense correct. Because you guys understand, Julian Assange, their legal defense against the UK extraditing him to the United States was that they feared for Julian Assange's safety. They felt that the United States would violate his human rights, which they already did. Then the UK courts being corrupt because there's a connected, corrupt international game we fight against here. They ignore that, like, no, he'd be safe. Even though we know the CIA tried to kill him. So I want you to react to this. Mike Pompeo and the CIA is now sued for spying on Julian Assange. And this has been well known. They had literally live streams of Julian Assange playing, spying on him. They violated his client attorney privilege with this, so they have a strong case. But do you have any reaction to this, Kid, before we move on?
Yeah, here it is. Julian Assange is a hero and a shining example of what it means to be a journalist. I'm not going to sit up here and be like Fat Tony, Jenk Uygur, and pretend to be a tough guy.
Oh,
what Julian Assange has done, I know for a fact, I don't know if I could last even a minute with what he has gone through. This man is a father, he's a husband, he's a brother, he's a son, and he's an inspiration to us all. He's been tortured enough. And that idiot Trump, who surrounded himself with a bunch of yes people of the Bush-Cheney administration, listened to those jagoffs like the idiot that he is. All thanks to, also, mind you, again, we have to thank Obama and Biden for also putting Julian Assange in the situation too. Julian Assange did his job as a journalist and informed the people of war crimes happening in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as informing people about corruption in the whole world of politics in America, Europe, etc. He has done nothing wrong. He is not an American citizen that needs to be extradited to the United States under the old Espionage Act from World War I. Because, again, what he's looking at, 200 years behind bars, worse, being executed. My goodness, the man doesn't have to go through this. He needs to go home, and he needs to go home now. And I'll never forget that body language of Trump when he was confronted by it, where he says, I looked at everything, and I didn't really know. There were some correct answers on both sides. And he folds his arms like this. And with body language 101, it's either when you're folding your arms like this, it's either one, you're trying to observe something, or you're hiding yourself. You're trying to guard yourself. And that's what Trump did to Julian Assange. That's what Biden wants to do. The Biden-Harris administration wants to do to Julian Assange. They want to send him here to the #1 prison industrial complex country in the world. And mind you, again, when Julian Assange's case was taken care of in 2020, nearing the end of the Trump administration, the judge overruling that case said, the reason why I don't want to extradite Julian Assange to America, and these aren't direct words, but close to it, it's because of, well, America's not so shiny a record with how our prisoners are treated, and that there was real concern that, one, he would commit suicide, or two, something might happen to him, similar to a guy, I don't know, his name might sound familiar to you, Epstein, you know, that guy.
So many good points. I want to show you guys, since we're going to talk about Jenk later in this stream, because I want to talk to Max Blumenthal about Ukraine, but this just so happened to be coming up too. So we had to talk about TYT smear of the Grayzone, calling them Putin puppets. Before I get into that, look, check out Robin, this comment. This is
Robin.
Media. Make sure you guys subscribe to them. Kid, obviously on fire. This is why I love having them on. Always great to rant with you, brother. So we're going to talk about Jenk later, but since we're talking about Julian Assange, this is how we do our show, kid. We just have fun. We talk about a lot of different topics. But since
it's your show, I'm here to have fun.
Since we on the topic, we're gonna talk about Jenk being a smear merchant later. You guys want to know? You want to know what
Fat Tony? Fat Tony. I'm sorry, Jenk.
You mentioned it earlier how Jenk Uygur smeared Julian Assange of all people. If Jenk Uygur is smearing Julian Assange, there is no low he won't sing. Let's play the video of him doing it, and then let's get your reaction, Kit.
Well, obviously it's hard to tell who's telling the truth here, but lately I have to confess that WikiLeaks has not had an astounding record. The way that Assange seems to be backing Donald Trump over and over and over again, it makes me very seriously question Assange's efforts to actually be a journalist and not to be a partisan. And I get it. I get why he hates the Democrats. They're trying to put him in prison, okay?
Right.
But at the same time,
so are Republicans. Let's be clear about that.
And now the Republicans are too, and they have been in the past. But it seems like Assange has picked a side. And look, it makes me question his reporting. And so that's the situation we're in now. So now, is he just leaking things that he gets, and no matter what, in which case I would respect that? Or is he selectively leaking based on his political motives? Now that suspicion is out there and it's real and it's possible, well, now I'm concerned that it can't be trusted.
All right.
You notice that he asking questions. I get right. I get you right here, kid. But you notice how he asking questions. Is he holding back publishing? Like he does questions, not statements. That's a smear. But go ahead, kid. I want to get your reaction. Go ahead.
I regret any kind word that I ever said about TYT or Jenk Uygur in the past before I started my channel. I regret even ever being on TYT when we did 2 interviews with them. I regret ever once even consider them to be legitimate. The very fact that they are out there saying, oh, he's picking a side. He's not an American citizen. He's an Australian citizen that's right now in a British prison, and he's going to be extradited to the United States. Does anyone not see the utter stupidity in Jenk Uygur's comments? On top of that, too, Julian Assange, as well as the entire career group at WikiLeaks, they never once had to retract a story. So you're going to sit here and lie about their record. It's impeccable. They never once had to retract the story. I'm going to say it again for the people in back. They didn't ever have to retract the story. So that means throughout WikiLeaks' entire history, they've been on the point, which is something TYT, I guess, wishes they could do. Hey, where's that $2 million for that investigative team that you were doing, Jenk? Where's the 4 horsemen? Where was Nomiki? Where was Jordan? Where was who was the other guy? The other 2 guys. There was Sean King, and then there was Michael Tracy. Those were the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that were going to do investigative. What happened to that, Jenk? Oh, that's right. The $2 million somehow disappeared, but you got that $20 million of Katzenberg cash. You see, Julian Assange did his job as a journalist. He spoke truth to power, and now he's being punished by it. And you're going to sit there and lie to your audience and say, oh, it looks like he's not doing the right thing. He's always been doing the right thing, unlike you, Jenk. So, Jenk, if you ever decide to, I don't know, stop eating marshmallows and actually maybe wake up to the fact that the Democratic and Republican Party are all friends with each other and that they've been screwing over the American people and that there's an unchecked corruption that's happening, but oh, wait, you're part of that group because you're part of the connection. You want access. But wait, Jenk, Democratic progressives don't even show up on your show anymore. Neither does Bernie. So well done being a corporate stooge and smearing a journalist that you wish you could be like.
That's why I love. I had to get your take on it because whenever you take down Jenk, it's always just perfect. Well, do you see the Jenk and Bree debate? Okay.
Yeah, I did. I thought one. So I know in the title you guys said like Jenk was bullying Brianna. I didn't look like bullying. It looked more like a little kid screaming at his mom, like, "Pay attention to me! Pay attention to me!" And the thing is, Brianna Joy Gray clearly has the patience of a saint, because I've never seen such immature behavior by Jenk. And I understand, like, maybe when you're interviewing someone, you get angry. I'm going to admit there are 2 times where I literally snapped at 2 guests because they need just to be regulated, right? And again, that's not professional to do. But Jenk Uygur's body language, acting like a clown, interrupting and talking about Jimmy Dore. Oh, Jimmy Dore. It was so. This is the guy that's quote unquote the leader of the rebellion, leader of the progressive media networks. This is the guy who's in charge. He couldn't shut up about Jimmy, similar to Sammy Boy Cedar. He wouldn't shut up about Jimmy. They're so angry at Jimmy because Jimmy's bringing in the audience. Jimmy's been speaking truth to power about the Democratic Party. And the thing is, okay, yeah, we talk crap about the Democratic Party too. The GOP, it's easy, low-hanging fruit. We know what to expect from Republican lawmakers. They will never talk about Medicare for all or student debt forgiveness. I know what to expect from the GOP. The Democrats put on this face of neoliberalism and say things we want to hear, but they don't do it. And so Jenk acting like a child towards Brianna Joy Gray. Yeah, it's again, Brianna Joy Gray. I don't know how you pulled it off without snapping at him, but you could tell that there were moments when she's closing her eyes, just meditating, breathing. It is incredible. I don't think I could do that. What she did, I have to tip my hat and say she's a stronger, better person than me. That's what I have to say. She did great.
Yeah, it was a great performance. Like Sam and Jenk, the ego that they're gonna have a proxy debate about Jimmy Dore because they're too much of a coward to have him on this show. They're gonna have a proxy debate with Brianna Joy Gray, a Harvard-educated lawyer. Like, what? Yeah. That's not a good idea. And I said it before, like there's no one I ever went out after on this show that I wouldn't have on. How do you go after and attack people over and over again? Like Jenk attack Jimmy, Max Blumenthal, we're gonna have him on soon. And Glenn Greenwald, he like, no, I won't talk to them. What kind of pussy shit is that? Like that is
Okay.
unbelievable.
Okay,
go ahead.
so we've had so I'm gonna say this, and this is not a dig at libertarian, but I don't really agree a lot with some of the political policy decisions the Libertarian Party has. But we've interviewed libertarians on my show. And I've been told by people, hey, you shouldn't interview libertarians. You shouldn't talk to them. Well, if they're running for office, if they're running for positions in Illinois politics, I got to talk to them. Okay, I'm going to speak to them. And I'm going to give them the respect that they are due. I'm not going to sit there and start a fight or instigate. Tell us what you're doing, all right, and whatever. I'm not going to agree with it, but fine. But I'm going to talk to anyone. I'm going to talk to Green Party candidates. I'm going to talk to socialist alternative candidates. I'm going to talk to activists. I'm going to talk to fellow people from independent media. I'll talk to anyone to come onto our show. Now, the thing is, Jenk saying, I don't want to talk to Aaron Mate or Max Blumenthal or Glenn Greenwald or Jimmy. Well, you better talk to them because you can't stop thinking about them. And again, Jenk's so upset about Aaron Mate and Max Blumenthal. The Grayzone was in the fight for its life, and they won. Okay, they nearly could have lost everything.
I'm new blood, but the idea that you just say you won't talk to someone with a giant plot, that's so crazy to me. Like, I've only been doing this for less than 2 years, but you are a political commentator who claims is representing a movement with a giant platform, but you not want to talk to people who, like, you want to talk to Richard Spencer, but not people to your left. Anyway, I can't wait to get Max take on that. I'm gonna get to the story. Hopefully, I got time. Cause I know you probably got Jay here soon.
No. I still got like 20 more minutes.
You got 20 minutes. All right, cool.
Yeah, 20, 25 minutes or so. Yeah, so I can stay around.
All right, let's see. Which one should I do? All right, let's do the DeSantis story. Okay, so we're gonna have Max Blumenthal on here very soon. He's gonna talk about the Russia-Ukraine war. And then we can hopefully enlighten Jenk on why we take the positions that we do. Like if you look at the video in the beginning, at the very beginning of the stream, I played the Uhgur Black Socialist Movement. They're talking about how, not Putin that is applying authoritarianism in our state. It's not Putin that is waging a drug war. It's not Putin that got kids in cages. We got to keep our eyes on the prize. Stop allowing the establishment to distract us with the other, right? We live in a country right now where, and this is reality in my state. I live in Missouri, guys. Live in Missouri, where the government is telling workers how they can plan their families, what women can do with their bodies. We don't get free health care. In Russia, they get health care. They got access to abortion. And if you do have a child, you get free child care, 180-day maternity leave. And I heard this from my friend Zoya and people that from Russia, that you can easily extend those 180 days. Like there are loopholes to get more. I heard stories, and she knew people that had like a year off in Russia because of maternity leave, because of a lot of different loopholes and a lot of different benefits that they offer. Meanwhile, in the United States, they force you to have a kid. And then not only do they force you to have a kid, they will charge you out the kazoo. Now you're in medical debt. My friend told me how much it costs to have a kid. I'm like, holy shit, this is why I don't have any goddamn kids. What?
Always wrap up, gentlemen. All right, seriously.
Like how much it costs to have a kid? So they force you to have a kid here. Then you go into medical debt. Then they don't give you child care. Then they don't give you paid maternity leave. But they want us to care about what Putin says? You have our country is everything that the capitalists claim China and Russia is. And you guys want to know why I hear a lot recently? Russia is a police state because they do something I disagree. I spoke out in regards to Brittany Grimer. I think China's regressive stance on marijuana, I think that's unnecessary to building a socialist Marxist international order. I don't think that's necessary, right? So I have these criticism of these states. But when I see U.S. patriots, when I see partisan actors like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they're like, look at Russia and China. They are police states. I literally seen liberals saying that they're police states. Go ahead.
I just want to add in here. Look, other countries have figured out how to do Medicare for all, how to do affordable education. Yet the United States, richest country in the world, at least in modern history, the richest country in human history, has ever does not take care of its people. It abandons its people. We've perfected a new age feudalism in the United States, where the rich have everything and the poor are screwed over. I also want to point out that there are some businesses, some jobs out there that, one, not only if a woman gives birth to a child, and not only they charge with the insurance and the hospital fees and everything else, but then they're expected to go right back to work. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not a medical expert or anything, but I'm pretty sure giving birth to a child is something very traumatic to happen to the woman's body, and she needs time to rest, recuperate, recover, so that she can once again get back to work, but that's going to take time. Plus, she has to bond with the child. She has to make sure the child's needs are taken care of. Because let's face it, babies are very vulnerable to set environments, no matter where you're at. You got to make sure, they're still going to be taken care of, that they're going to grow, that they're going to be safe. And yet, here in the United States, we're not doing anything like that to take care of our people.
Dude, there's such a giant conversation to have about the development of children. How important it is to have their parents there.
Yeah, and again, I'm not an expert.
I'm not either.
But at least one parent should be there, because I understand that, again, times have changed. There's single parents, and then there's 2-parent households or anything like that. But where's the compassion? Where is the humanity? You're not going to find it here in America, thanks to our politicians. And again, I just want to give this shout out to Case Study QB, who did this video commenting how Lauren Underwood was happy that we got that little extension with Medicare for all, or it wasn't exactly that. We were given crumbs, and that yet all of Khive went after him, calling him a racist and a sexist. And I think one of these jagoff liberals had the audacity to call him a white privileged male. I think I saw one of these chats in there, but I want to remind everyone, Case Study QB is a black man, so white liberals, and everyone in Khive, when you're done, crapping your pants.
So why were they going after him?
Okay, so here it is. I actually got the link, and I'm going to private message you on Twitter. Here's what he wrote. Corporate Democrat Lauren Underwood, and she is a corporate Democrat, boasts about the Democrats' neoliberal band-aid on healthcare and pats herself on the back for passing crumbs. And that's what the Democrats did. So hang on, I'm private messaging you right now on Twitter. And here you go. There it is. This is the tweet. And if you look at the chat, you're noticing everyone giving him the middle finger. You got Khive so angry. You got all the vote blue no matter who, crying, moaning like little punks. And
so
the thing is,
just to sum it up, guys. So not to sum it up, but they try to call Case Study QB a racist for criticizing Democrats, right?
Yep, they call him a racist.
Black man, because he don't use his profile picture like I do, and that's why a lot of them just block me, because whenever I have my criticism of Nina Turner and Charles Booker, there are these shit libs, the progressive shit libs that want to call me a racist so bad. I know, because I see people that had the same criticism I do, and they will call him a racist. Meanwhile, I'm just some sort of random fash or something like that. I don't know. But can you send me that too? I don't see it. I don't see it.
I sent it to you private message.
In Twitter. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I sent you that private message.
This the criticism. And then they called him a racist. Look, you guys see how Case Study, our brother, you guys know, friend of the show. I talked to him on calling. We had him on the show a lot. He don't have a picture of himself, so they don't know what he is. I can already see. Look at his ratio, bro. Democrats they got mad.
They really got mad. So anyone who loves Case Study QB, because I respect.
You sound like GOP. You sound like GOP for pushing politicians. What?
Mm-hmm. Now again, look. I'm not an expert, but Nick, you and your entire crew, you've been wrongly smeared. People have been calling you guys fascists or secret Nazis or whatever. And the thing is, I'm just going to say this. Black people can't join the Nazi party, okay? It's just one of those things. What the hell is wrong with this vote blue no matter who crowd, okay? They're so stupid and so childish because, they're afraid of Trump. He's going to run again in 2024. It's going to happen. This whole thing that happened with the FBI Mar-a-Lago thing, that's not going to change a goddamn thing. he's if Trump is successful in actually going around this and beating what happened at Mar-a-Lago, he's going to use that as political ammunition. If that's not going to push him to run for 2024, I don't know what will. I don't want to see that guy run. But now, hey, liberals, you're dancing and happy, but he's going to come back, and then everyone's going to be crying and crapping their pants.
Yeah, that's why they're trying to do the whole FBI Mar-a-Lago thing is about prevent him from running again, and that's literally obvious to everyone who's not a shit lib. That's like super obvious. So I think we got time. We still got the time. I want to get back to because I was playing like I know who our enemy is. I got our eyes on the prize. This is Joe Biden is now arresting 25% more than Donald Trump did a weed arrest. More deportations using Title 42. Spending more on the military-industrial complex. Bombing Somalia for a third time this summer. We're gonna cover that here very soon. I can't wait to get Matt's thoughts on that. So I might save it for when Matt get here. And then I was saying how you have the liberal class. They've been calling, they will call like Russia and China authoritarian, but we live in literally a police state. We in a position right now where the reason why the Democratic Party is pushing to expand the police budgets even more is to counteract the social unrest that is coming. So now you have, in response to late-stage capitalism, you have both sides that are welcoming the police state, the expansion of the police state, because they need to keep the workers under control as our economy fell. That is what late-stage capitalism is. Not only that, you got workers everywhere, workers of all different professions that are on strike. I see teachers on strike, nurses on strike, these people on strike, everyone's on strike. Everyone wants to strike if they're not on strike. So you got workers upset, you got the police state being established, and among the workers that are upset are the teachers. There's a giant teacher shortage that is going on right now. And the reason why there's a shortage, according to literally anyone who has common sense, is the way they're treated in their pay, especially the load and amount that they had to take on because of budget cuts, where they had to increase schooling size, increase class sizes. Then you had the burden that they had on, and that continues to this day regarding COVID-19. And you had the Missouri State Commission told, they say low pay, lack of support is fueling teacher shortage. And Missouri, obviously that's my state, right? They have the lowest. Actually, I'm gonna find my other receipt because I can find it real quick. They actually have the lowest teacher pay in my state, and my state is really bad with the teacher shortage. So how do capitalists handle this issue? They don't. Capitalism is not designed to fix issues; it's designed to exploit. So you got all the teachers that are leaving education, something that is extremely important for our society to educate our kids. Now there's massive teacher shortage, so our society couldn't maintain the amount of teachers it need for a growing population. That is what you call a failed state. Like you literally cannot meet the needs that you need to educate children. So here's Missouri. Look at this. You guys see how crazy this is, kid? Missouri ranks last in teachers' salary. This is my state. $32,000 a year. What? 32 grand a year is the average teacher salary in this state. They got paid for supplies. They do extra credit with homework. They got giant teacher class sizes. And with this kind of pay, people are like, oh my God, I can't believe the teachers are leaving. So what is the right-wing answer to this? What you expect. There is no capitalist solution to this problem. Right now, the capitalists want to cut out the middleman of the prison to school pipeline, where now you just have the cops become teachers. And I actually want to show this unhinged clip. I'm gonna do something I usually don't do. I'm gonna show you guys a clip from Fox News where they talk about this policy and they defend it. Ron DeSantis is a fascist authoritarian. This is the guy who banned government officials from supporting BDS, cracked down on the First Amendment rights of protesters. You got people like, well, he didn't ban protesting. He just tell you where you can protest. A protest where you got to ask for a permission slip and beg the government is a prep rally.
Can I add something? Because
Yeah,
that sounds very similar to what I saw in 2016 and 2017 when we were covering like all the protests against Trump. Everyone would always march from a government building, like all the activists in Oregon, would then march to Trump Tower here in the city of Chicago. Now, Trump Tower is across the river of Chicago, so people would always be protesting, but they'd be herded into this cage area like sheep. I remember the first time I stepped out, and I'm outside the crowd because I wanted to get a wide shot of everyone marching in, and then I noticed they're all being sheep herded into like a cage. People, you never get a permission slip to protest, and you never get sheep herded into a cage. Malcolm X and Dr. King should come out from the grave and start slapping people upside the head for asking for permission slips or being put into a cage area like that. I mean, come on. So Malcolm X especially should be rising up from the dead, start yelling at people.
It's crazy how the two-party duopoly turned people to fucking bootlickers. Right,
I know.
And now you got people. I literally seen people who call themselves right-wing populists. They're like, "I'm anti-establishment, but I support Ron DeSantis telling people where to protest." Tucker Carlson did segments like, "Yeah, oh my God, you guys are being so mean. You guys are being so mean to the rich Supreme Court justices."
I don't care.
So I'm gonna get to what he's doing in response to this teacher shortage because Florida is among the worst on how they treat teachers as well. So. Florida got massive teacher protest, a lot of them quitting their jobs. So now they're saying they want to get cops in schools. And I'm going to play this Fox News segment while we have time. I don't play that much of it. But you're going to see Ron DeSantis start by saying, we are battling wokeness. Now, wokeness is this new lizard brain that the right-wing propagandists have trained their audience to completely rob them of their critical thinking skills that come after that. Right. So if you say you're battling the woke mob, they will allow you to engage in whatever authoritarian or fascist tactics after that. We find woke mobs like brand protesting. Hell yeah. He activates their lizard brain. So then he's like, we're gonna fight the woke mob by putting cops in schools. And they're like, yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's play this clip, and then we're gonna watch Fox News defend the insane idea of having cops and untrained veterans. And keep this in mind. 40% of cops admit to committing domestic violence. 40%.
And the fact that, again, look, a barber in America goes to school longer than an officer does, an officer of the law. And, there in other countries, at the bare minimum, it takes a year to become a police officer. In some other countries, here in the United States, it's shorter than what a barber has to go through.
So think about that. Let's play this video while we still got you here, and I'll play a little bit. I'll get your reaction. This is a crazy. I remember I was watching this while I was doing chores, and this is crazy because I want, like I always do, I want to see the counter argument. The idea you're gonna put if you and they do this thing where they worship police and veterans, and they're like, well, the police will say so honorable, the veterans are so honorable. Even if you're not as radical me, you think police and veterans are honorable. Will you ask them to fix your TV if it breaks down? Will you ask them to fix your look at your car engine? Look at this insane ideology. I think I'm prefacing it. Now let's watch this video while I still have you here. This Fox News clip. Oh shit, hold on. Let me make sure the audio is right. Well, here we go.
The state of Florida is the place where woke goes to die. We are not going to let this state. We're not going to let this state descend into some type of woke dumpster fire. We're going to be following common sense. We're going to be following, facts, and that's just really, really important.
That's Governor Ron DeSantis standing up to the woke ideology taking over schools across the country and in his home state of Florida. The governor is offering a unique plan to tackle the national teacher shortage by hiring retired police officers, military veterans, and first responders. DeSantis says their real-life experience makes these retirees a perfect fit to counter the ideology he says gets drilled into today's young minds. The governor had more to say about this a short while ago.
We believe that veterans offer a lot to our communities. We want to harness that. We want to harness those experiences, being in those military units, understanding how to lead people, understanding how to be in difficult circumstances. And so our view is that, those folks are bringing a wealth of experience and knowledge. We want them to look to our education system as a place where they can land and continue to serve our communities.
Joey, I think this is a fantastic idea. Our veterans know about the values of bravery, heroism. I don't have to tell you, service to the country. That's who I want teaching my kids. I love this.
No, I like it. I think really the genius here is how do you circumvent the indoctrination of universities? You go find someone that might have gotten a 4-year degree, but has spent 20 years doing real world things, not academic things. Just like sometimes small towns will hire veterans and put them out on the police force and give them kind of a crash course. That's not a good way to set them up for success. You have to take a veteran, teach them to be a police officer. There's a difference between seeking the enemy and wanting to kill it and having to treat the enemy to protect the enemy, which is what officers have to do. The bad guys, they still have to protect them as they bring them into jail. So one thing I will say is I hope that the second step of that plan is to bring these veterans, first responders, just because they have a 4-year degree, and teach them to be a teacher. But not teach them to be a radical left ideologue who is indoctrinating children. That has nothing to do with teaching. And I think the idea here is if you find someone that has already had a career in public service, doing something honorable, they're probably not bringing in a bunch of academic ideas that really teach you to hate this country.
Okay, so there's a couple things unpacked with all that.
Yeah, go ahead. One, so much.
All right. So when you look at, again, the record of the police force here in the United States, a lot of cops are getting involved with corruption, abuse here in the city of Chicago alone. There's a lot of unchecked corruption. In 2017, Daniel and myself, we actually covered the exoneration project where 16 black men were exonerated from crimes that they did not commit thanks to the corruption of 4 Chicago police officers. But they were only scratching the surface to that entire investigation because, again, 16 black men were proven innocent. How many more men and women here in the city of Chicago who are behind bars or in the state of Illinois are wrongly there? We don't know. We don't know, but we do know that there is unchecked police corruption. I also want to point out here too, so you're going from one indoctrination to another. Are we really challenging what's happening here in our system? And the answer is no. You go from one extreme to the other, but remind you, again, it's not really left or right. It's indoctrinating people to accept the neoliberal centrist system that we are in. This ridiculous puritanical world that we live in where you have to work, and you'll somehow make it. Work until you die. Work, and you get close to God. Puritanical logic. And mind you, when I say Puritans, this is the ideology that came from the Pilgrims. And before anyone who's conservative types into the Pilgrims were religiously persecuted. No. Everyone got tired of their shit. You couldn't drink, you couldn't smoke, you couldn't enjoy. The Pilgrims, the Puritans, were the ones that canceled Christmas. Of all things, they are the ones to do it first. So before anyone else sits here, work, or believe in the dream, even though people are being evicted from their homes and apartments and small businesses are being consumed, you'll own nothing and be happy. Again, everyone's biggest regret on their deathbed is, I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I actually enjoyed life. Those are people's final words when they've been suckered into a system, working at a dead-end job, dying. Okay, so this whole thing about somehow reforming the education system, it takes a while to actually get a degree to work with children. Okay, you just can't just put a veteran or a police officer in there. Because again, you got people who have development issues, ADHD. You have children who have other learning disabilities as well. And it takes time to understand. And yet, sadly, what a lot of those veterans and police officers will be walking into is the world that teachers have been dealing with for a long time. Teachers have been vilified by Democratic and Republican lawmakers. Teachers are somehow the bad guys here in America, even though it's corporations that are skimming us and bleeding us dry. It's the teachers that are somehow the villains. So again, they'll be walking into that environment, seeing how underfunded our public schools are, how many children are being left behind, and how the United States is falling drastically behind compared to our neighbors all in the international community. So you're not fixing the problem. You're trying to put a Band-Aid on a gangrenous wound, and it's not going to heal anything. There needs to be a real investment into education and actually helping teachers, not woke ideology. It's actually trying to enlighten students. And the way we have education here in America is antiquated. It is severely antiquated. And whatever DeSantis is trying to do, he's trying to keep up the centrist message. Don't challenge the system. And if you're going to get involved in politics, either vote Team Blue or Team Red. But don't think outside the box. Do your job. Shut up. Consume the media. byproduct, live, die. That's it. And if that's what education is coming to in America, which it is at this point, we need to remove the entire system.
Yeah, they want us to have a dumbed down population. The Rockefellers designed public education. It was all about having just worker ants. And the same way they put cops in school, they do that so they can get people used to prison and living in a police state, because we do live in a police state. So now they just getting rid of the middleman. Now they can have cops as teachers. And as you mentioned, and I had teachers I'll talk to about this. It takes a lot to become a teacher, a lot of training. They don't care that the kids is going to have a devalued, trash education, which we already do in this country. Our education is already trash, and now they're going to make it worse. And now we look at Ron DeSantis, we see exactly what we've been telling liberals for quite some time. I would tell them, I don't understand Trump derangement syndrome. He just one average member of the ruling class who showed the Republicans how to take advantage of the base that they radicalized, that the Liz Cheney's radicalized. You know, the birther, you know, the person who still defends torture. Liz Cheney in the Lincoln Project manifested the Republican voter base out with their insane bullshit. Now liberals wanted to pretend that Trump was somehow unique. So we told them that, hey, even if Trump goes, there's going to be a new guy who takes over, who does exactly what he does, but does it better. Enter Ron DeSantis. Competent version. So look at how dangerous this is. This is why I say, as a socialist, you guys need to indoctrinate your kids, because either you're going to do it or the state going to do it. Either you teach your kids how the world actually works, or they're going to teach you some bullshit in history that makes no sense. I want a teacher that can teach some math and science. I don't want a cop. And you see, and if I continue to play the segment, it gets even more unhinged because you only hear from one of them. I don't know how much time you got, a kid. Yeah, I know you got to go here soon.
I have to be heading out. In a little bit,
but anyway,
I just wanted to say here, you know, Fox News is no different than CNN or MSNBC. They're there to make people turn their brains off. Okay, the establishment media wants to keep people divided. The two-party system wants to keep people divided. But at the end of the day, if you're a diehard Democratic voter or diehard Republican voter, know this: they don't like you. They don't think about you, and they don't respect you. And the corporate media and big tech do everything they can to keep you dumbed down, because here's what the two-party system, the media, and big tech really think about. Nothing. They're going to say that you're too stupid to figure things out, and they're going to figure it out for you. And then behind closed doors, they all laugh at you because they don't respect you. So the thing is, it is okay to give a middle finger to corporate media and to these politicians at the state and federal level. It's okay to give a middle finger to big tech. It's okay to ignore these bastards, call them out, and for us to build our own movements and our own organizations that are not connected to Washington, D.C. More and more Americans don't trust the institutions because the institutions have failed the people. And so all the generations, boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Z, I don't care the color of your skin, who you worship, who you love, but if we don't come together, and if we don't wake up to the fact that we are in this nightmare that's been designed by our politicians with the help of corporate media and the big tech, none of us will ever be free. None of us will ever truly have a voice. And that's why I'm going to say before I head out, I want there to be more people like yourself, Nick, and even the audience too. Don't be that person who says on the sidelines they wish they could help. I'm not asking you to be part of independent media, but at least do something to build something in your community so that you're helping out. Because Washington, D.C. and these politicians won't help you. The corporate pundits don't really care what's really happening. They'll do maybe a 2-minute segment on some tragedy, and then they'll just go on talking about something else because, again, the corporate pundits. So the real heroes, the real knights on the hill, the real people that will come to our rescue is ourselves. Self-reliance and breaking away from the establishment. You have what it takes. So I hope in the future we see more independent media networks out there stepping up, speaking truth to power, talking about what's happening in your neighborhood. I want to see more activists and organizers stepping up and building political power not connected to Washington, D.C. If that means third parties, fine. But I want to see independent, non-political party affiliated people run for office and win. This is how we get our democracy back, and it's not going to be an easy fight. But if we don't fight for that better future, We're going to be looking down at the ground, and that future generation will be looking at us in the eye and saying, what did you do? What did you do to stop this? And I don't want to have that conversation. I want to make a world where that next generation is going to do bigger and better things than we are. That's what I want.
Well said, my brother. Okay, I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate you joining. It's always good to talk to you. We gotta do this again very soon. Like I said, we gotta be up in Chicago here soon.
Yeah. One other thing too, I saw Fiorella posted on Twitter that Moscow has better pizza than Chicago, which I gotta say, whoa, Fee. Number one, okay, Moscow is a sister city to Chicago. It's technically suspended, but I view it as a sister city to Chicago still. Number two, we did win the pizza election, and Chicago is the first of all pizzas are equal, but we are the first among equals. Okay, so in many ways, when she says Moscow has better pizza than Chicago, well, that's acknowledging that, again, our sister city is following Chicago's example. So thank you, Fee, for saying that Chicago's influence is recognized worldwide. Now, the election's over. We're the first among the equals, but all pizzas are equal. We're just the first among equal. We are the princeps, the Augustus of pizza. Okay, so there.
Well said, kid. My first reaction to seeing that tweet was like, I'm telling kid. I'm telling kid.
Oh yeah, no. I already found out, and I'm like, wow, Fee, you cannot accept that democracy won and that we've been fairly elected. So there we go. There you go.
Make sure you guys subscribe to Harlan's Media. Good talk to you as always, kid.
All right, I'm heading on out.
Always great talking to kid. Always a powerful comrade. So we should have Max Blumenthal. He should be coming in here very soon. I can check on him. But let's get through some super chats. And I have another story I want to break down too. Like this, if we don't get if Max running a little bit late, getting his take on Somalia would be great as well. Let's make sure that he. Oh, Max is coming. Max is coming. All right, let's read some super chats. I see. So Max is gonna join us here soon. Let's get some super chats. Thank you for the $20. D-Bow, the Black Panther, super powerful. Nick, CJ, Sabby, Rome, and RBN is holding us down in the belly of the beast. Keep pushing, fam. Much appreciation, D-Bow. Thank you for the $2. Abolish political parties. At least we should definitely abolish the two-party duopoly. That's definitely for sure. Thank you for $2, Roger Meadows. I want to see more BLs Kit connect him with Jocelyn. Am I reading that right? BI. Sorry. Anyway, thank you for the $5. Kristen Gomez. Damn, I should have read this when we had Kit on the stream. Kristen said, Nick, if you come to Chicago, I'll take you and Kit for deep dish Chicago pizza. There's plenty of time to show you some love out here. Much love to all my comrades in Chicago, all across the country. We definitely send up RBN chapters, and we're gonna try around and we're gonna have some fun, guys. One of these days. Thank you for the $10, Jennifer. I'm always happy to see this community supporting each other on social media. We have to unite across working class. The liberal conservative dichotomy is just an illusion created by the oligarchs. And you know it's the people that keep pushing that, right? Like the Jenk Uyghurs. We're going to talk about him very soon. They are obsessed with pushing the red-blue divide, the right-left divide. And then whenever people like us come up and say, oh, we need to work with anyone who is right on certain issues and form coalition for healthcare and end the wars, that really upsets them. So I'm going to get to this Somalia story. It'd be great to get Max takes on this. I know he's setting this up. So since we talked about Russia earlier, and I'm gonna ask Max this take, because he has a great bombshell reporting from the Grayzone that's covering Ukraine corruption, and essentially the same thing that got CBS in trouble. So CBS, they covered how Ukraine corruption and incompetence is making the West waste a lot of their aid they are being sent. The incompetence and corruption of their government is allowing them to lose civilians and have a lot of soldiers who die unnecessarily. So Matt's going to explain that. And I'll explain my position on why and there are a lot of people who call me Putin puppet the same way they call Max Blumenthal Putin puppet like Jenk did. I'm not rooting for Russia. I don't care about states. I don't care about that. I don't have a dog in that fight. I have a dog fighting against NATO and U.S. imperialism. So if you look at colonial Africa, you won't see a Russian flag. It was the Western powers. It was the United States, it was Europe, and then you have AFRICOM that to this day is still pillaging, bombing, and destroying Africa. You had Jim Crow Joe, who's obsessed with bombing Somalia or any African country, the same way they destroyed Libya when he was vice president. Jim Crow Joe loved bombing Africa. NATO was a tool of colonial power that was meant to maintain the power of the colonial states who later would join NATO. That's the black radical position. So I'm not rooting for Russia. I'm not rooting for Putin. We just have a common enemy. If you're a black or colonized person, we have a common enemy, and that is stopping the expansion of NATO and the U.S. imperial power, right? That we have the same goal. And this is why. So why they want us to focus on Putin and Ukraine, the blonde, blue-eyed people. You have Jim Crow Joe who bombed Somalia for the third time this summer. These operations have been going on for 15 years. So Joe Biden, the vice president, was like, man, that was some great bombing I did back then. Let's do it again. Let's bomb some more Somalians. The United States conducted another round of airstrikes in Somalia, the third this summer. If you were unaware that we was bombing Somalia, don't feel bad. This is a completely under the radar news story. You guys see, like, I'm driving liberals crazy because I'm not allowing them to distract me with their Putin and Trump derangement syndrome. I'm looking at the people in charge right now and what they're doing to our communities, increasing federal arrests of cannabis, deporting more Haitians than Donald Trump did, bombing Somalia. They're still financing a genocide in Yemen, but they want us to focus on Putin? And you guys want to know the funniest thing about the whole Somalia bombing? You have the West that essentially use the same excuses and the same rhetoric that they accuse Putin for being dishonest for using. So the United States has backed this puppet leader, that anti-imperialist in Somalia and the no war movement in Africa. They've been fighting against this because the U.S. keep putting their hands on Somalia. And they have this puppet government that is willing to allow U.S. companies to come and loot the workers and their resources. So you have a movement in Somalia, you have political parties in Somalia that's against this. The United States backed up the current government right now, ran operations in the area to prop up this political party who is just as violent as Al-Shabaab, right? So they say, well, we gotta prop these people up because we gotta fight Al-Shabaab, who's a terrorist group. But both sides, Al-Shabaab, they do commit heinous acts. But Somalia is a very violent and divisive country, the same way Ukraine is. So you have both political factions in Somalia that commit human rights violation. But the United States picked a side that's going to be the U.S. puppet. So the former Somalian president did support U.S. troops being in Somalia. This is who Ilhan Omar, she sided with the United States in getting rid of. And this is why you have Somalians that boo Ilhan Omar. And Ilhan Omar barely won her primary election. Way closer than a lot of people thought, because a lot of Somalians in her community turned against her because she support U.S. regime change in Somalia. So she support getting rid of the guy who was against U.S. presence in Somalia, because the anti-imperialist movement in Africa, they acknowledge that the United States is the greatest of all evils. They consider them to be a very evil, even than the terrorist group Al-Shabaab, which the United States created, by the way. The United States literally created Al-Shabaab. And they continue to create these terrorist cells in Africa. They literally placed Al-Shabaab in Somalia by overthrowing the current regime. And then they bombed the radicals that they prop up and say, see, we got to introduce freedom and democracy in this country against the government that we propped up in the first place in the mid-2000s. So I want to explain how they use the same rhetoric that they criticize Putin for using in Ukraine. So liberals will say, well, Biden has the right to be in Somalia because the Somalian government want him to do U.S. operations to fight al-Shabaab, right? That's the same thing you get out of Donbass in eastern Ukraine, where eastern Ukrainians asked Putin to intervene with Ukraine. So you had the U.S. backed puppet in Somalia who wants the United States to get involved in their government, who they propped up and they allow in the government. So then they say, well, the Somalian government, they want us there. They want us to liberate the people from al-Shabaab, right? That's the same thing that Putin says. We had Eastern Ukrainians who want him to liberate Russians, right? The same logic. And then they say, well, we're not bombing Somalians. We were bombing terrorists. That's the same thing that Putin says. That's the same denazification argument. We're not bombing the Ukrainian people. We're going after Nazis. That's the same argument that the United States used in Somalia to this day. Don't y'all see the parallels there? We got our guest Max here as well. Give us a thumbs up whenever you're ready. They also, and this is what AFRICOM in the United States, this is what they also would do. They also say, well, with this last bombing, they said, well, there was no civilian casualties, right? There's no civilian casualties. We only bombing the terrorist groups in Somalia. But this was reported years ago, and this is a common pattern in the U.S. war on terror, right? They will say they bombing terrorist groups, and AFRICOM and NATO would straight up bomb ordinary Somalians, and then they will say, "Oh, well, there was terrorists." Anyone who has anti-government sentiment, or hell, they just make it up. They did it all the time in Afghanistan and Iraq. So look at this headline: New data shows the United States military is severely undercounting civilian casualties in Somalia. And you guys think Jim Crow Joe, the notorious liar, is not doing the same thing? It said Air Wars found that between 71 and 139 civilians have been killed in Somalia since 2007, far exceeding AFRICOM's official count of 2. AFRICOM was like, we only 2 civilians died. Meanwhile, the number is between 71 and 139. And that's what the Biden administration is saying now. They bomb Somalia and say, oh, we're going after the terrorists, right? So I actually want to take this time because I think that's a good coverage of that story. Jim Crow Joe still doing it again. They want us to be obsessed over Russia, over Putin, over China, but it's the United States that is bombing Africa, that is using geopolitical wedges that they have with Russia to attack Africa and say, oh, you can't buy Russian grain, right? But anyway, I want to get Max on. You back? You ready? Give me a thumbs up. You good? All right, I want to get our next guest in. It's great to talk to Max Blumenthal, editor at the Grayzone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us once again, Max.
Hey, Nick, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, and I've been following quite a few people regarding the Ukraine conflict because it's crazy to me how people getting this wrong. I explained the black radical position to NATO. I explained earlier before, like I don't care about Russia or Putin in general. I just have a common enemy, the enemy of NATO, and I see the United States being the aggressor. But there's so many people who get this wrong, especially people who consider themselves progressives. We had the entire progressives voting for Ukraine aid, right? So I want to get your general thoughts on how the media have been covering Ukraine, what a lot of people have been getting wrong. And then I'm going to cover the story that you guys came out with in the Grayzone regarding Ukrainian corruption and incompetence with the weapons. But before we get into that, what is your general take on how the media been covering Ukraine and how so many people, progressives included, have been getting it wrong? So do you want to take that on, Max?
Well, we've seen the mainstream corporate U.S. media actually start to publish a few critical reports on Ukraine and actually do their job, which should be to tell Americans where their money's going. And this is the result of the fact that the money has basically been extracted from the U.S. taxpayer, from working Americans, and it's being sent into this nebulous dump of corruption. Sorry, I hear.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the money's being sent into into one of the most corrupt nations on the planet. So CBS News actually produced a report on where the $40 billion in aid, which is like $18 billion in military aid, is going, stating the obvious, which we always knew, which we've been saying from the beginning at the Grayzone, which you've been saying, which is that the weapons are going onto the black market. They're being sent there by warlords and corrupt leaders, figures like Uygur Kolomoisky, who's basically a warlord who has funded the Azov and Aidar battalions, two of the main paramilitaries incorporated into the Ukrainian National Guard, as his own personal Praetorian Guard. And, you know, they're making money off the aid now. So CBS News actually did that report. They had a guy who was an aid worker, a U.S. aid worker, one of the from a major NGO, actually state that only 30% of aid is reaching its target there on camera. So what happened? CBS News basically redacted its own report under pressure. This will go into another aspect of the information war. But CBS News just basically deleted all of its tweets promoting its own documentary, and then it said it was re-editing its documentary because
you have journalists that now apologizing for doing the job of journalism.
Yeah, that's your job, and it shouldn't have been controversial, except that they're not serving the people, and so CBS News actually was violating sort of the sacred code of corporate media, which is that you are not supposed to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. You're supposed to comfort the comfortable and serve as their stenographers. That's what our corporate media does. So they disappear their own report. I don't know. It's back on the cutting room floor. And then you have Amnesty International, which I've repeatedly called Shamnesty, because they tend to pretty much serve as a public relations agency for Western states. They will never publish the same amount of reports condemning Israel as they have with Russia. We've seen 40 reports by Amnesty International driven by their Ukrainian division, which is a bureau based in Khive consisting of hardcore Ukrainian nationalist activists. I mean, committed Ukrainian nationalist activists who are just lobbyists for regime change. And they freaked out when Amnesty International finally issued a report on what we've been seeing and hearing from places like Mariupol and other battlefronts, especially in the East, which is that the Ukrainian army is deliberately endangering civilians by operating out of civilian centers. There's copious video footage of Ukrainian soldiers in gymnasiums in schools. And we saw the Azov battalion in Mariupol embed itself in civilian apartments and use them as firing sites. And then what they do is then when the Russian army will hit the school or whatever where they're based, then they'll say, oh, Russia has a policy of deliberately attacking schools. So actually Amnesty International published something slightly reasonable. And what happened? Their Ukrainian division based in Khive of regime change lobbyists freaked out, condemned Amnesty's international board or its international wing, and they apologized for the harm that their report caused. And basically, they haven't retracted it, but they basically said it's not something that we're proud of now, and they'll probably never issue another one. When the Ukrainian military is dumping pedal mines on the separatist independent Republic of Donetsk, leading to children and youth having their legs blown off. I mean, this is happening all week. They're committing so many crimes. They bombed a hotel. They bombed an aid agency called Food for Life, which was headed by an international aid group in Donetsk, and killed the director of the group. This was with a U.S. HIMARS, a mobile rocket system provided by the U.S. taxpayer. And, we need to know where our weapons are going, what they're doing, and the U.S. media and the human rights industrial complex is refusing to tell us. So at the Grayzone, we published a piece by a journalist who we've published before. She's been on the ground in Syria, including in some of the most dangerous places in Syria, Lindsay Snell. And she was in Ukraine and delivered some of the most devastating critiques of Ukrainian leadership that I've read. But these weren't critiques from, Russian politicians or, anti-imperialist activists. These were from Ukrainian soldiers themselves, Ukrainian journalists, and U.S. volunteers who had either gone to fight on the side of the Ukrainian army or who had volunteered as medical workers. And they basically said that our aid, $40 billion and more, is going to the warlords, to the gangsters, and it is not reaching the army. So this is a money laundering operation. And we have it in the words of Ukrainian soldiers themselves. And one thing we can definitely say is that the Ukrainian parliament, every single party in it, and of course, a lot of parties aren't allowed to serve because they were illegalized by Zelensky because they're his opposition. But all of the parties that are still in the parliament voted to give themselves a 70% increase in pay I think it was just a few weeks ago, without any dissent.
They're doing it right in our face.
What's that?
They're doing it right in our face. They get all this aid, and then they vote for a 30% raise. That's so crazy.
70% raise, and it's 70. Not in our face because our media should put this on the front page of the New York Times about this level of corruption. And you know who protested this pay raise? The Ukrainian people who are doing the fighting, because they're saying, and they're telling Lindsay Snell, our contributor, that they're not even getting the weapons that are supposed to be sent by the U.S. while they're voting for these pay raises. So where did the pay raise come from? It came from our pockets as the U.S. taxpayer. We're paying to pamper Ukrainian parliamentarians who are completely corrupt and are serving the interests of gangsters like Igor Kolomoisky, the largest funder of Zelensky. So that's what's going on here. It's a giant scandal. Not any bigger than the scandal of Afghanistan or what happened with our money during the COVID lockdowns or during the housing crash, but it's just consistent with the overall trend of global capitalism.
Yeah, that's such a great point that you made regarding that. It should be out in our face, but our media is so obedient. Like dictators, tyrants, fascists in history will look at the United States and they'll have envy and how out in the open the corruption is here. Like the same way when Israel killed Shireen Abdul-Akleh. Like this is a blatant assassination by the Israeli government that the media then covered up by saying, oh, there might have been Palestinian fighters in the area and one of them might have shot Shireen. Just repeating nonsense. The same thing they repeat, the same reason why they repeat nonsense in Ukraine. You have reporters that not even asking critical questions about like what the long-term strategy. I seen like segments on CNN, MSNBC where they're like, yeah, we just send more weapons down to Ukraine. We're going to beat Russia. Yeah, that's not how this war is going to end. And you see the same media obedience where they not, if you mention anything about Ukrainian war crimes, they snap at you. I'm gonna give you a reaction to this because this is in response to the CBS story. This guy is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. And you see, this is how they intimidate journalists from repeating the truth.
Yeah.
This is when CBS already groveling on the ground. they already begging for them to forgive them. But this is what the Minister of Foreign Affairs said in Ukraine. Welcome to the first step, but it's not enough. You have misled a huge audience by sharing unsubstantiated claims and damaging trust in supplies of vital military aid to a nation resisting aggression and genocide. There should be internal investigation into who enabled this and why.
Yeah, we really need to trust military aid. Trust the military aid. It sounds like trust the science. We have damning quotes in this piece by Lindsay Snell coming from a fixer, a professional fixer who's a Ukrainian. Basically, all of these journalists from Europe and the US go to Khive and they hire a fixer who speaks Ukrainian, who guides them around, provides them with sources, basically does all the real work. I mean, that's what happens in the Middle East and Africa and everywhere else. So this fixer really spilled the beans. This is what they said. This is in the gray zone right now. Real journalism is dangerous here. You see, since the war started, we have these new star reporters, and every day they write that Putin is bad. The Russian soldiers behave very badly. Today, the Ukrainian army killed 1,000 Russians and destroyed 500 Russian tanks. They get 1 million followers on Twitter because they lie, and this isn't real reporting. But if you write about corruption in the armed forces and have real examples, you won't be famous and you'll be in trouble. So basically, these Western reporters from Europe and the US, they metaphorically parachute into Ukraine, and then they feed the Western public on these triumphalist delusions that the US's money and arms are actually going to defeat the Russian bear and crush Putin. And it's something to cheer about at a time when American power is waning and the empire's mask is lifting. It's something to get excited about. And they fed Americans on lies. And as soon as they tell the truth, their editors are going to probably cut them. So they're not telling the public about what this fixer said is right in front of their faces. He said, I've worked with about a dozen journalists from different countries in Europe. All of them have been shocked. They left Ukraine shocked. They said they could not believe the situation here, but this shock did not make it into any of their articles about the war. Their articles said that Ukraine is on the road to victory, which is not true. So there you have it. They're all just a bunch of professional fabulists and tall tale spinners and liars. And they know the real situation on the ground. They just won't tell you. It's like when I saw it in Gaza. I was around all these reporters, and the stuff that they would turn out made it seem like Gaza was just this ordinary place that was fighting a war, that it wasn't like a besieged human prison that was where the prisoners were being bombed for staging a prison revolt. Like, they just couldn't tell you that. And then as soon as James Foley this is in 2014, as soon as James Foley got beheaded by ISIS, they all left Gaza and went chasing the next story because they didn't really care. These are the worst people. The press, you meet the worst people in the media. It attracts the biggest careerists and narcissists. That includes the left alternative media, by the way. I mean, I've met a disproportionate number of genuinely terrible people there. Just the whole media it's made for malignant narcissists. But it's particularly pronounced in the coverage of the Ukraine proxy war.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to some of the people who getting this wrong very soon, and because I love that you bring that up in your article, I'll pull it up again here. You see in the bold, it said foreign journalists cover up the grim reality with triumphalist delusions. So this is what you mentioned before, and because they have a job to sell the aid, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one. This just came out today. Pentagon announces extra $775 million in weapons to Ukraine. So I explained this concept on the show before. If you go out and tell the American people the reality of what happened in Ukraine, the only way this war ending is with negotiation, like how all wars end, right? If you tell them that the Ukrainians have no chance, they have no organization, the weapons is going to warlords' hand, would they be more likely to accept the fact that $750 million of their dollars going to Ukraine? What's the number now, man? It's like 50, 60 billion in total. I don't remember the exact total number, but you have all this money going of your taxpayer money going to Ukraine. That's a much harder sell if they were talking about the reality on the ground. If you're talking about how there's Nazis that are getting the money, how the DHS even admit the media didn't report on this, but the DHS came out with the report where they was worried about these weapons coming home with Nazis, with Nazi militias who were trained by the military over there. Like there's these concerns that you're not allowed to talk about, or they will call you, like some people in the Fox left, right? They will call people pulling puppets for simply report on this. And it goes to the careerism aspect of this, because I remember growing up during the Iraq War, right? And you see people career was made repeating the state line. That's the same way with the Ukraine war. People, like, if you look on Twitter and the shit lives on Twitter, it's like a competition. Who can have the biggest shit-lived Ukraine take there is, and if you can, that will blow your career up. The same way Rachel Maddow, her career was made because of Russiagate. They really are slime. So you have anything to add to that, Max, before I get to the Jenk story?
Well, we've never seen any contrition or accountability for the lies of Russiagate, and that was because the war hadn't happened yet. Russiagate was about stimulating public support for a giant war with Russia, or at least a proxy war that hopefully won't turn into a conventional nuclear war. That's what it was about. It was driven by a coalition of hardcore neoconservatives, intelligence professionals like John Brennan, and the Clintonite dead enders who wanted an excuse for losing to the bad orange man. And they succeeded in driving hatred, with at least within the Democratic Party and even in progressive circles, as you pointed out, for Russia to record levels not seen since the highest point of the Cold War, probably since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And what has it amounted to? It's amounted to support for military conflict with Russia. And here we are. So there was no accountability for this gigantic hoax, this massive deception, because the ruling elites who were behind it all, particularly the intelligence professionals and you know, the military intelligence professionals, they needed to get their war because they needed to extract the money that would pay for it from the general public and place it into the hands of transnational corporations and the defense industry, the arms industry. And so that's happening. And once that's exhausted, as the Afghan war it was like a 20-year project of plowing trillions into contractors and companies. And I've seen it here in DC. The entire economy in the city has changed because of all the money that flowed in, thanks to the post 9/11 economy of Iraq and Afghanistan. They're going to do it again with Ukraine. Then once they can't extract any more from it, there will be some kind of negotiation. And there's no way in this case that the West is going to get what it wants out of this war militarily, but the global capitalist class is getting what it wants at the very least.
Well said. Now we covered the Ukraine conflict. There was a lot of great things that you said. And now let's show you guys the opposition. Someone who took everything that we said, just talking about the facts on the ground, right? And then they take that and they call you a Putin puppet just by explaining the facts. Now, we already talked about the Jenk and Bree conversation. And when you listen to the conversation, you explain why, you see why I say there's no left infighting. The difference between RBN and TYT is so wide, you can't say that's infighting. There's no infighting here. These people are capitalists, these people are imperialists, and these people are in no way, shape, or form our allies. These people, their only job is to divide what would be a movement to challenge the establishment power. So when we have a March for Medicare for All, they are there to attack the March for Medicare for All.
Yep.
We have truth tellers that are telling the truth about Ukraine. They're here to repeat, literally verbatim, what you will hear on MSNBC regarding the Grayzone and their coverage of Russiagate. So with that said, I know you guys have been waiting for this. One part that I found very interesting while watching the debate and why I decided to cover it, we didn't get to this part on our live stream yet when we covered the Bree and Jenk debate, is what he said about the Grayzone, because Jenk, being the divider that he is, he's here to put people in camps. If you're against the establishment, you'll be part of the fake left, where he's trying to put Bree in. And he put the Grayzone there because they're not repeating state narratives. So let's watch the video, and I want to get your reaction to this nonsense. And you can correct.
I haven't seen it before, just for the record.
Oh, this is great. So we can get
my first time seeing it. So you get
it's like, let's check it out. And then we can use this as a time for education, because that's what I like to do with these drama segments. Let's use that as time to educate people on what he is getting so wrong. Because there's a giant segment of what Caleb Maupin called the bread tube that has been hijacked, and they pretty much just repeat state talking points uncritically. Like the Vosh Limbaughs, the Jenk Uyghurs, it's all he's the same one. He pushing NATO leftism right now. That's not organic, and there's no one that can convince me otherwise. But anyway, let's go to TYT and let's hear what they said. This may be like 2-3 minutes, and after that we get your reaction to it. This is the debate that Bree destroyed him in.
Some portion of the right, etc. I'm going to take yes for an answer on all those, but there are other issues. There's actually 3 buckets. There's the bucket in the middle where we don't agree. I don't agree with some people saying they're on the left, right? So Ukraine, for example, questioning the amount of funding that's going to Ukraine totally makes sense. I believe Ukraine is in the right, but hey, whenever we ask for anything at home, we never get it. But as soon as defense contractors are going to make money off of it, we're spending billions. And that isn't necessarily even going to Ukraine. So I find that legitimate. But then when you get the gray zones, and I hate saying, "Oh, the Ukrainians are terrorists for fighting back against the Russians. How dare they kill the Russian soldiers?" They literally said it. Jimmy did a video about how the Ukrainian civilians were terrorists for firebombing the tanks that were coming to blow up their house.
Wait, he talked about Jimmy Dore and me at the same time. I don't know what Jimmy said, but
I think I maybe don't watch as much Jimmy Dore as you might, but I do listen to Aaron Mate and Katie Halper's show. I do hear him in that context. I do see clips from Grayzone people and things like that. I had Max Blumenthal on the show, and my understanding is that there are these specific instances in which there's not reporting on the West about various skirmishes, about the presence, even if you think it's too minor to talk about, but the presence of Nazi and right-wing groups in the context
that's what I'm talking about, Brianna. You're validating insane right-wing talking points. So,
but wait a minute,
it's a right-wing talking point to be against Nazis.
No, that's a Vladimir Putin talking point as a justification for attacking them.
But Jenk, I mean, there's a credibility issue here, because if you mischaracterize other people's arguments, I think there's a legitimate reason to have a
credibility issue. I've never seen Grayzone not agree with Vladimir Putin. They are total and utter puppets for him.
Jesus, fuck, you got. Where do we even start with that? You guys see this meltdown?
Well, it's like
where do you want to start, man? There's so much to say there.
That was my first time seeing it, and like I feel more disgusted than the reaction video I did to 2 Girls, 1 Cup after watching Jenk sweating and bloviating. I mean, what? Like, don't I deserve better enemies than Chunk Uygur, the washed up MSNBC failure who can barely form a coherent sentence? And if you look at what he's doing, he's avoiding the issues by using the gray zone to appeal to the prejudices of his normie brain dead viewership. And if you're still watching TYT at this point, I just don't. I mean, why not just at least get a higher production value with MSNBC and watch like David Plouffe with a slightly better background than Jenk? Like, and you know, Chris Hayes, you know, it's like I'd prefer like a Rachel Maddow impersonator to like just like one of the most inarticulate, unappealing characters in corporate media. And TYT is corporate media. It's supported by corporations. What he's doing though is he's using the reputation of the gray zone, which has been our reputation has been tarnished and attacked relentlessly by the foreign policy establishment and all of its tentacles in the media. And he's leveling it to avoid having an actual argument about these issues about Ukraine. And he's just like, it's like talking to a really stupid propagandized normie that you just might meet in, you know, I don't know where you would meet them in real life. They're probably like living online, but he's just highly propagandized. He's like, I believe that Ukraine is in the right, but he doesn't say why. And he can't get into any of the substance of the arguments. But in the gray zone, you got the gray zone. I see this all the time with these TYT and Bread 2 people. Will just be like, unlike the gray zone types, or that guy Marcus who does this show with Sagar and Jetty. I saw him say,
oh Jesus fucking Christ. Don't get me started. Go ahead.
He was like, you know, Republican minority.
You see, that's the black voice they get on Breaking Point, is the imperialists.
Well, him, I mean, not to divert from Jenk too much, but him and Sagar seem to have gotten these kind of like special minority fellowships from the Hoover Institute because it serves the interests of white Republicans, so they wanted them in there. And actually, I'll go into Marcus in a second, but I'm just saying he was one of those characters who would just invoke the gray zone to take all arguments off the table. And that's the thing. No one ever debates us.
And I know you didn't see the debate, but it's something else. There's like people making fun of it all online right now because like Jenk was using Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore, and he was like he was having this internal debate with you guys using Bree as a proxy. She was like, I'm right here. Why you keep talking about Jimmy Dore?
Like the Grayzone literally called. He always does. So he says something is literal, but it never happened. He's like, they literally called the Ukrainians terrorists because Jimmy Dore said they firebombed the tank. It's like, wait, so we literally called them something that Jimmy Dore allegedly called them, but Jimmy Dore isn't with the Grayzone, and there have been acts of terrorism there, though. That's just indisputable fact. The constant shelling of civilians in Donetsk, deliberate attacks on marketplaces in Donetsk that have been filmed and documented, they don't enter through the 76 pounds of lard that encases Jenk's golf ball sized brain. So he doesn't know about that. And everything that he echoes is a function of the propaganda, the corporate propaganda that he internalizes. And that's really the role of TYT, is to kind of take Democratic Party and military intelligence propaganda and put it in a language that sounds kind of progressive, and then to occasionally do some. This is a thing I've actually seen, because I've been around Democratic Party circles and those progressive movement circles, which are all billionaire backed. And they have this thing where they attack the Democrats really harshly, but it's because the Democrats won't go far enough to take on the Republicans. That's their thing. It's not that the Democrats are corrupted by Wall Street and the war state. It's that they're just not anti-Republican enough.
Yeah, and I explain this concept all the time. People who in these same Jenk Uygur style leftists, I call them TYT leftists, they were so upset with me because I wouldn't vote for Jim Crow Joe in the last election, because they were like, oh, you just kick and complaining because you guys not getting everything that you want. As if my complaint is that the Democrats not fighting hard enough. I love that you put it that way. My complaints with the Democratic Party is what they do to our communities, the crimes they commit. Not that they're not doing enough. I want them to stop putting their boot on the neck of our communities. I want them to stop funding genocides. I want them to stop funding the police more. It's not what they're not doing. It's what they're actually doing. Amy Klobuchar take the second most out of police funding out of anyone in the Senate. And then she fails to prosecute Derek Chauvin, and that leads to his murder. Then Joe Biden invited the George Floyd family to his White House, wrote a bill in his name that funds the police more. The Republicans wish they can get away with that kind of disrespect, right? Yeah. So people, they miscategorize why we don't like the imperialist party. But go ahead, Max.
Yeah, I mean, you have Anna Kasparian's rant against the Democrats. I am never. They always get so worked up. I could never just by myself and a camera get that worked up. You got to be kind of miss a few cards short of a deck to get that emotional with just you and a camera. But she was like, I will never, and you could see her bun tightening and ever vote for the Democrats again until they. But it was because they had not codified Roe, and that's it's what Jimmy Dore had been saying. But she's basically saying that they just aren't taking on the Republicans harshly enough. And then you could see she pulled back pretty quickly from that line and is back to the line they're always at, which is gatekeeping for the Democratic Party. And the Democratic Party is actually, it's always sort of played this role that it's currently playing, but it's changed. It doesn't have its New Deal elements anymore. It doesn't even have the classical liberal elements that we saw in the 1980s congressional Democrats, where they actually would take on something like Iran-Contra. Today's Democrats would celebrate Ollie North the way they celebrate Liz Cheney, because they love proxy wars. They love the intelligence community. That's what they call it. They don't call it they don't think anything's wrong with the CIA. And as we've seen, they love the FBI. Because it's going after the bad. It's going after the bad orange man. You have Charles Booker, who's marketed himself as a progressive candidate who also defends the interests of Black people who have been historically oppressed in the American South, and he's running in a southern state, and he's the pro FBI candidate. Yeah, there you go.
I mean, Espionage Act. I did a story on this weekend. This is a new tweet where he's attacking Rand Paul, the libertarian from the right. Bruh. Yep.
So the Democrats are pushing those lines, and the left the professional left, including a lot of the socialist organizations, have spent a lot of their energy investing in candidates who are supposed to go into the Democratic Party and change business as usual. And instead, those candidates have been absorbed into the party. We see this happen again and again. That was the role that TYT was actually supposed to play around the 2016 Bernie campaign, which was to shake up the party instead of serve as a gatekeeper. So they have nothing to show for themselves. All their candidates are supporting the FBI. They're supporting the Ukraine proxy war. And then you have this right-wing whack job who comes into Washington from Georgia, this gun-toting right-winger who hates socialism, or so she says she hates socialism, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she says all the stuff that the squad is supposed to be saying about Edward Snowden and Julian Assange being pardoned, about the 40 billion being this gigantic money laundering grift. She is condemning the Azov battalion and did a Twitter thread that was absolutely excellent about the Azov battalion being actually a literal neo-Nazi wing of the Ukrainian National Guard, funded through the Ukrainian Interior Ministry, which has carried out heinous human rights abuses while being celebrated by the Ukrainian diaspora in the streets of New York. It's all true. And it's so left, the identity of the left is in a state of complete crisis right now, as they see that their relationship with the Democratic Party has blown back on them. They don't have anything to show for themselves. And so that intensifies the need for gatekeeping and for attacking those of us who are moving away from that perspective. And you see this gatekeeping not only from Jenk, but you see it within more, what you could consider radical elements of the left. And it all comes back to us. Somehow we threaten them, but just, from my point of view, what I'm trying to do with the Grayzone is I'm not trying necessarily to win power. I'm not trying to start my own party or something. I'm just trying to educate people about what's happening out there through journalism. That's what I've always done. And somehow that's really threatening. And, there just aren't any reporters. There used to be some space within the Democratic Party and within the mainstream press for people with that perspective who are just trying to hold power to account. Instead, you see that space carved out to some extent for someone like Rand Paul and the Republican Party. And you see right-wing media create that space through someone like Tucker Carlson. I'm not saying in any way that I agree with all their positions or that I'm a libertarian or whatever, some immigration hardline. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying they are creating some space for dissent within their own media and political superstructure, but there isn't that same space within the kind of mainstream left in the US, anywhere near the Democratic Party. It's not allowed. And increasingly, it's less and less allowed within the left as a whole. So, yeah. What else can you do but call us Putin puppets when you can't argue with the facts that we're presenting and appeal to the prejudice of your Democratic viewers?
And I believe that's by design as well. I want to get your thoughts on this because this is a theory I've been working on, because I see like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they speak about the issue on Ukraine. I saw them. I remember she was tweeting about how we send all this money to Ukraine, but babies don't have baby formula, right?
Yeah.
And then they proposed a bill to I didn't read the bill, but quote unquote fix the baby formula shortage, and she voted against it. I don't honestly think these people are good faith actors, but I think it's a psyop by the establishment. So you get Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, because they all voted no on the Ukraine package, and they are the bad guys, right? Meanwhile, you have Bernie Sanders, AOC, the Squad, Charles Booker. These people all go in on Ukraine because they are given the perceived image of being the good guys. So they want to trick people. Hey, Bernie Sanders is going for Ukraine aid. Bernie Sanders is calling Putin evil. Bernie Sanders isn't questioning NATO, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is. Do you see what the theory I'm getting at? So they want
Yeah.
people like, she's
It's
bad.
humiliating. It's got to
Yeah.
be humiliating to a lot of the leftists
Yeah.
who tried to encourage others to come from, you know, to come along within their socialist organizations and support Bernie 2020. It's got to be humiliating to them, but none of them have taken any responsibility for doing that or said Bernie is wrong. And, you know, I'm sorry I did that. We need another political direction in this country to provide people with hope, because what they do, and you know, what happens in left organizations and left groupings when the leadership comes along and says, we need to support this candidate or this initiative. And then it just turns out to be this gigantic, not just a failure, but a complete betrayal, is that the rank and file loses hope and leaves and moves on. And some of them may even go to the right or to something else. And that leadership never takes responsibility for their failures. And it was, the writing was on the wall with Bernie 2020 when he started having people like Matt Duss run his foreign policy, people from the Center for American Progress, the billionaire and corporate funded think tank of Neera Tanden in Washington, D.C. was filling up the top slots in Bernie's campaign. His campaign manager came from Center for American Progress as well, Fez Shakir. And like, these are Democratic Party professionals who are going to completely suppress Bernie's 2016 message, which was already, you know, kind of not so interesting, but at least it was creating some space to challenge the, you know, the Clintons' control over the Democratic Party and the Obamas and that whole legacy. Anyway, it's all over now. It's done. I mean, Ukraine really showed that it's completely done. And Bernie Sanders, I mean, watch his foreign policy speeches in 2020. He's setting the stage for supporting this kind of conflict by dividing the world into the autocracies and the democracies and creating this Cold War scenario in his speeches that's playing out right now. It's very insidious what Bernie did. He needs to be held accountable as well. But the most bizarre thing to me is that as soon as Marjorie Taylor Greene says what all of these left branded office holders and politicians, including, you know, a perpetual politician, Nina Turner, who can't seem to get elected to dog catcher, what they are supposed to be saying, but they're not saying, is the reaction from professional left media influencers, which is to attack Marjorie Taylor Greene for saying something that they agree with from the right. You're not supposed to do that. And that's because they're trying to guard the rails of the left and prevent people from losing hope in left leadership when they're doing the opposite. It's an identity crisis across an entire movement that is just spreading nothing but alienation and division within its ranks.
That's exactly what it is. Especially when the establishment see the rise of an anti-war movement, they send Barack Obama to kill it. Then whatever is left over, they send these progressive charlatans to kill whatever is left of that, or at least redirect it to a point where it's useless. Like you've seen everyone bootleg John Fetterman recently.
Oh, yeah.
And John Fetterman literally said when he becomes a senator, he's going to deepen ties with Israel. So he sees what the Biden administration is doing. He's like, let's do more than that. I'm gonna show you this tweet because I don't know if you've seen it. I want to get your reaction. This is John Fetterman. This is when I saw this, I was like, hard no, because I'm already a hard sell on any politician as it is. But when I saw this, I was like, yep, hard no. He said, tonight we saw how we can be united as a country, plus take our commander-in-chief, President of the United States, as he takes on Putin. Because you know that's what the left really wants to do, Max. Our main priority is taking on Putin and supporting the people of Ukraine. We must continue showing the world that we as a country must be completely united, stand with Ukraine in the fight against Putin. This is the left candidate.
Well, it's worse than, you know, that he's the left candidate. Like AOC is sort of a left candidate because the left is this boutique thing that just is a byword or stand-in for virtue among a lot of the professional managerial class grad student types who comprise what is effectively the US left now. But what Fetterman is doing is more insidious than AOC. AOC is kind of like, this is what I am and you like it. Fetterman is trying to appeal to the material interests of a betrayed Rust Belt working class through his image. He's like another. They just keep throwing these different like boy band type deceivers at you. The tricknology
And
is
you don't see
really
how big he
impressive.
is? But
Yeah, so he's like this big guy, and they're like, you know, all these consultants are telling him, yeah, that the sweatshirt is great. We got you a new sweatshirt. It's like how Zelensky has his green t-shirt, but Fetterman has his hoodie. And the longer, I mean, he's like, I bet you it's totally within the realm of possibility that Fetterman will wear that hoodie and his like Carhartt jeans or whatever and his Timberland boots to the World Economic Forum in Davos to give a talk. Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
So if John Fetterman was senator this year, he would have voted for Ukraine aid. Just letting you guys know. Here's the Israel story. John Fetterman says he'll lean in on U.S.-Israel relationship as a senator. And this is the same thing with Nia Turner when she said she didn't support BDS and she said we must support Israel. You have a progressive movement right now that where they said we want to get meager gains, which they're not getting, FYI. But their philosophy is let's get meager gains for the working class by selling out Palestinians. Let's sell out any colonized movement. That's their strategy. And it's crazy. This is the Charles Booker. This is another one where he can't help. He's running against
John McCain, quoting John McCain. At least put it in your own words. Like we're supposed to just bow down. AOC called it, John McCain, an unparalleled example of human decency. Like, there's no questioning of him at all, in addition to this McCarthyism. But I mean, Fetterman, you're going to see him saying like, we're bringing the Israeli Elbit Systems Arms Company to Pennsylvania. They're creating jobs for our communities. Like, that's the level of support he's going to give the working class. Raytheon are job creators and Lockheed Martin. I mean, so it's just a hollow fraud. Like, there's no questioning of any of these psyops within any elements connected to the Democratic Party and increasingly within the sort of organized structural professional left. Like, they looked at COVID and all of the restrictions attached to it as a purely technical solution that had no relation to the interests of capital. And these are the people that are supposed to be schooled in Marxist thought and to be the critics of the establishment. But once the lockdowns came down, they said, and they were told, and they're also supposed to be revolutionaries that are running to the barricades.
And they defended Big Pharma. Matt,
they defended every aspect of it without criticism, and they upheld this jab as some kind of holy talisman. They treat masks not as like pieces of cloth, but they treat them like Orthodox Jews treat kippahs when they go to the synagogue, like this, like you have to wear it as to display your piety before God, and God is Fauci. Like, that's the level that they've gotten to. It's not about facts or science. It's about pure displaying of virtue to others within your circles so that you can head off this identity crisis. It's about maintaining your identity as someone who's good and who transcends the evils of society. So they don't really see what's happening. Like, COVID was used to enhance control and surveillance over the general population, to further empty out the working class, weaken its potential for organizing. BlackRock was involved in the immediate pandemic response, and all of the mass evictions played into its hands. It bought up the real estate. According to Oxfam, the world's top 10 billionaires got 50% richer, while 97% of the world got poorer. And much of that money extracted from the public, as you said, Nick, went into the hands of pharmaceutical billionaires, including the CEOs of Moderna, a company that was completely failing before any of this took place. And what do they have to show for themselves? Not a whole lot, because the Pfizer CEO himself, who said that data out of South Africa showed that his jab actually prevented infection. Well, he's double boosted now and he is infected. So he lied, and they lied to get the profits. They have them, and now they're going to move on to a new crisis. And to the extent that we cannot see these manufactured crises as such, as efforts to scoop up money from the general public and put it in the hands of the global capitalist class, then we don't have a left or any real resistance. We should also be looking at what's happening in the Netherlands. We have a piece up on the Grayzone right now about that. I think it's one of the few pieces to draw the connections between the global billionaire elite that gathers around Davos and the farmer protests in the Netherlands. This is one of the next moves on the chessboard of the transnational capitalist elite, which is the transformation of food systems. They also want to transform energy, and they're doing it at the price of the livelihood of working and poor people around the world. Right now, okay, well, let's go back first to 2019. Protests were cropping up all around the world, especially in the Western Hemisphere, in Haiti, in Chile, in Ecuador, in Mexico. There were all kinds of protests across Europe as well. Then the pandemic comes in, crushes it all. It sort of delayed it for 2 years. Now there is a global cost of living crisis, and resistance is building across borders. And what I see in the US is the left largely sitting on the sidelines, and allowing the right to capture a lot of that energy. And what is the right going to do? It's speaking to people, working people who are alienated and disenfranchised because of the interests of global capitalism. And it's diverting the outrage away from capitalism to channel it into petty nationalist chauvinism. And that's the threat, but it's also it also, you know, is a critique of the failure of the left. They're not even seeing what's happening right now, and they didn't see what happened for the last 2 years. And you know, some of those who got it wrong, it's never too late to admit it and, you know, take responsibility for what you did.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of people lost me. And there was this giant schism of, if you want to call it a unified left, that there was, because I saw how many people literally had no Marxist or class analysis with their politics. They literally was Big Pharma simps. And I'm sorry, I have no other description for it, because what you're describing, the same thing that we attempted. Richard Wolff also was very vocal about using this as an opportunity for a class analysis and bringing people to have a class solidarity. So you have Big Pfizer, who's making 1,000, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 1,000 every second on the vaccine. And I remember, Max, and this is where people really lost me. I said, and this is not even where near an anti-vax argument. I said, if you want to increase the amount of people who are vaccinated, why not just pay people to get vaccinated? And I also said, because I know someone who had, actually I want to play this video because this is what Rome shared. Because I said that Big Pharma making $1,000 a second should literally reimburse people who was injured by the vaccine. And when I said that, the amount of meltdown that came from quote unquote leftists. So I'm like, what is your argument here? Are you defending the profits of Big Pharma? So let me play this video real quick. I don't think it's a long video because it's on topic. And then I'm gonna give a reaction. Now I can get you out of here, Max. Let's play the video. I'm gonna give you a reaction to it.
A woman from New South Wales has died after taking the AstraZeneca vaccine.
An 18-year-old health worker has developed blood clots after getting her COVID vaccine.
An elderly woman has died in what's believed to be South Australia's first case of fatal blood clotting caused by the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine.
A Queensland man is in intensive care tonight, suffering a blood clot after receiving his AstraZeneca vaccine. He's one of 5 similar cases around the country.
6 new cases of blood clots have been officially linked to the AstraZeneca vaccine.
3 more cases of blood clots have been linked to the AstraZeneca vaccine, including 1 case in an 80-year-old man.
53-year-old South Australian man is tonight gravely ill in intensive care.
That goes on for quite some time. I only played for a little bit there. And you see our revolutionary blackout brother Rome. He mentions, I will never forget people being mad at Nick for saying that people injured by the jab should be compensated for their troubles. Now, what I was saying is not anywhere near an anti-vax argument, because I was even saying, like, even if that number isn't high, as leftists, shouldn't we care about people who had their lives ruined because they was good members? Like, it was the quote-unquote good members of society. I know, friend, I'm trying to keep their information private. I know someone who lost their business because they was injured by the jab and they couldn't work. And since you can't take unemployment, you got business, they lost their business. So after hearing the story, I'm like, shouldn't that person be compensated? And then there was a giant meltdown from leftists, Max, because as a Marxist, I was like, how about we take care of our people instead of Big Pharma making money? That's when they truly lost me. I'm like, all right, these people, it's insane. But do you have any reaction? Then we can start getting you out here, Max. Go ahead.
I mean, I could go on for the next hour about that. It's just so.
Go ahead.
I mean, sometimes being right can really be a plague on your emotional well-being, because when you're proven right again and again, and the people around you were so angry at you for being right, it just makes you more alienated. And that's the way I kind of feel about the whole experience with COVID, where I just came out against the mandates because I saw it as not necessary from a public health perspective. We do an analysis of the actual vaccine, and the World Health Organization has had to change the definition 3 times because it doesn't prevent transmission or infection. I don't know if you can say that on YouTube, but it's just a fact that we see from Fauci, Biden, and the CEO of Pfizer, who are all double boosted, getting it very publicly. So what was the point? It was just, it amounted to a massive attack on workers, and even workers who had it mandated to them, who took it, were very unhappy because they were not able to control their own bodies against the boss's demand. The most important, they couldn't even defend their own biology against the bosses. How is that a left position? It makes no sense. And then you have the injuries, that it was denied that they were unsafe. I remember having some a professional left influencer actually tell me it's just as safe as aspirin. Everyone should just take it. And then I actually know several people who've been injured as well, who supported the mandates and just kept quiet in completely masochistic fashion. But here's the point that you're making. The manufacturers who profited so handsomely from the mandates, specifically Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, were immunized from any legal repercussions. They were given a total legal blank check to put this on the market, and no one could sue them because of Congress. And I didn't see any protest on the left about that. That wasn't some issue of concern. It was to me, based on my sense that corporations shouldn't be protected completely from any liability to the public. I mean, that goes back to Ralph Nader and his whole campaign for consumer protection.
Yeah, that's because we got principles. We have principles like body autonomy. And I saw so many people was exposed for not having principles. So it's like not really hard to get these issues right if you understand the dynamic between corporation and power, if you stand for body autonomy, because as these things will happen in real time, the reason why I spoke out against mandates, because I'm like, this seems extremely anti-worker. And I was very careful in terms of talking about how effective the vaccine was and everything, because I wasn't talking about things I didn't understand. I was very careful in not talking about like vaccine science and stuff like that. I was talking about principles, because I don't know the science. So I was like, isn't it a bad idea to take away the body autonomy of people and then fire them? And I had Howie Hawkins on this show. I interviewed Howie Hawkins, and it was disgusting what he said. I said, if there was a single mom that had 2, I gave him a hypothetical. I said, if there's a single mom with 2 kids and she didn't take the vaccine and then she was fired, will you have sympathy for her? And he straight said, he said no. How is that the left position? I asked when I was talking about the vax injuries, I mentioned, and this is a conversation I had with someone who unfollowed me because of my position. I said, so if someone like my friend, I didn't want to give up their identity. I said, if they lose her business because of the jab, you don't have any sympathy for her because she was vaccine injured? His reaction was like, no, because he said, spreading those stories make people less likely to take the vaccine. So it was like the end justify the means kind of thing. It was so disgusting. I know you want to chime in. So
well, yeah, the end would have justified the means if the vaccine was actually a vaccine and not just at best a therapy. If it actually prevented infection, if it was a sterilizing vaccine, and if the COVID infection fatality rate was something on the level of Ebola or smallpox and not minuscule to healthy people, and that the overwhelming majority of deaths weren't in people who had close to 4 comorbidities, according to the CDC. If that all weren't the case, and if we were facing a real kind of plague and we had something that could stop it in its tracks, as Rachel Maddow said in another just gigantic lie she was never held accountable for, if we had that, then yes, maybe you could make a strong argument for it being mandated and all the other stuff people told us, but that wasn't the case. And so instead of arguing, because they didn't have any argument, they would subtweet, they would do little YouTube videos about me without naming me, and they would use these ridiculous terms like anti-vax. They'd just be like, you're anti-vax. That's anti-vax.
They would tell people who got the vaccine, they would call them anti-vax. I've seen people who took the vaccine and they came out against mandates and they were like, you're anti-vax.
And it's the same way Jenk is trying to shut down debate by being like, they're just a bunch of Putin puppets. They're taking rubles from Putin, like, because he can't actually engage in a factual debate. And that is what's upset me so much. It's not over either. I mean, a lot of people act like, I don't want to say the pandemic is over, but the restrictions, the mindless restrictions. I mean, there are kids who are 4 years old who are getting the cops called on them in school because they don't want to wear a cloth mask, which, as every study shows, does not do anything except perhaps inhibit childhood development by preventing them from being able to read their teacher's lips, especially children who are hard of hearing. No one seems to think about them. In Washington, D.C., 12 and up, all children 12 and up to go to public school are going to have to take this vaccine that doesn't prevent transmission or infection for a virus that will not kill them. There is simply no record of healthy youth that age dying from this. So why is it being mandated, particularly when at the current phase we're at in Washington, D.C., where the vast majority of youth who go to public schools are Black? Some 40,000 Black youth will not qualify, will not be eligible to go to public school here under these conditions. And there's just silence about that. That is one of the most despicable. I mean, all these people who talk about equity all the time. Actually, Human Rights Watch just issued this report condemning the CDC for eliminating distinctions between the vaccinated and unvaccinated, and finally acknowledging quietly that natural immunity exists. This basic medical principle of natural immunity actually exists. Human Rights Watch condemned them on the grounds of hindering equity. I mean, it just made no sense to me. But here in Washington, D.C., children are going to be forced to take this medical procedure, mostly Black children and brown children who come from more underprivileged backgrounds than the people who made this policy and who are profiting from it. And there isn't any movement coming from the left to defend the bodily autonomy or the rights of these children to education. I mean, I was also kind of blown away when I saw the Chicago Teachers Union stage some giant protest to keep kids at home and not have school earlier this year, to keep them on Zoom and to keep them on all of Bill Gates's devices and to keep them in these small apartments during wintertime, including in public housing, to keep them away from schools that often provided them with free lunches because, they got hysterical about Omicron. That's just not the left that I was drawn to when I started getting involved in it. It's really lifted the mask for me. And I'm just going to state my views and continue to try to educate people with journalism. The first piece we did at the Grayzone on the issue of COVID, it was just like what you were saying, Nick. We weren't trying to say, oh, the vaccine is going to do We weren't trying to analyze it, but we wrote about the experiences of many young women of childbearing age who had their menstrual cycles altered, and many women who were hesitant to take the jab because they were afraid it was going to do the same thing to them. And now we see, after we were mercilessly attacked by all of these people calling us anti-vaxxers and spreading disinformation, that study after study is showing that an enormous number of women experience menstrual changes as the result of taking this. I know so many of them myself. And what you had was basically young laptop-bound men attacking those women who we quoted in our article, gaslighting them and calling them spreaders of disinformation for trying to defend their own reproductive rights and health. How is that a left-wing principle? And once again, there's been no accountability. No one's come forward and said, we were wrong. I read those studies and we were wrong. I'm pulling one of them right now. Yeah, here we go. Well, it's not coming up on Google, but
I remember I had a friend that mentioned that before. Then the reports started coming out.
Yeah, here's NBC News. Menstrual changes after COVID vaccines may be far more common than previously known. A study found that 42% of people with regular menstrual cycles said they bled more heavily than usual after their COVID vaccination. So that's what that it seemed like a feminist issue. It seemed like a left issue. It seemed like, and we were just mercilessly attacked for publishing that piece.
Yeah, one thing that it upset me because I was very careful, but I was always a fan of science. I talk about this all the time. I was a fan of history of science before I was into politics. I used to study astrology. I used to study chemistry. Just for fun. I think it was fun to watch that. I knew how the scientific method works, and I understand that science is not like this set thing. Like science, right. Like the most unpopular scientist was hated back in the day because they asked questions and prove the establishment wrong. And I never even took a hard spot. Like, shouldn't we be allowed to ask questions though? Shouldn't we have public discourse over this stuff? When people were getting shut down and public discourse wasn't even allowed over proper public health policy, that is when I started becoming really skeptical. So here I won't pull up what you just posted in the private chat, just so people can see the receipt here. Let me pull it up here. And I honestly didn't even pick that hard of a stance. I just said, shouldn't the Robert Malone be allowed to debate this kind of stuff with doctors who disagree with him? Just for example, that's how science works. It's a scientific method. People test your theory. People test your hypothesis. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. You got to prove it. But that process wasn't even allowed to happen in the mainstream media. And I know for a damn fact, I interviewed someone on the channel a long time ago that said vaccine production take like 5 to 10 years. And then they came out with one immediately. I'm like, wait, we're not allowed to question that? Like how they was able to get that done? But
that was a big part of that was another big part of declaring about the pandemic hysteria was getting the mRNA onto the market because it had never been authorized before. And you saw a lot of mRNA vaccines that were attempted against HIV AIDS fail in all their clinical tests. Fauci even said in 2019 that it's really frustrating to have to wait 5 to 7 years to get one on market. We need to speed up the process. And so they got the emergency use authorization. And you know what's so fascinating about the emergency use authorization is when it was ended through some supposed clinical trial that the CDC ran, it wasn't the Pfizer, it was given to Pfizer. So Pfizer was basically given, it's FDA. The FDA supposedly authorized Pfizer, but it wasn't the Pfizer vaccine that everyone's taking that was authorized. It was a vaccine that isn't even available in the US called Comirnaty, which is a company connected to Pfizer. So the emergency use authorization is actually still, all of these are still experimental or emergency use. And we, as Barack Obama said in a speech at Stanford, we were test subjects in one of the largest experiments in human history.
100% right. Well, there's one more topic I want to get your opinion on real quick before we wrap up. I appreciate your time, Max. This is a quick story because I've been covering Biden in Afghanistan. There are a lot of people who like immediately forgot about that, but I'm staying on top of it because if you guys don't know, Biden has been starving Afghanistan people because they've been taking funds from the Afghanistan people, billions of dollars. So, and it would starve millions and millions of people, right? And they are saying they're giving this to the families of the victim of 9/11, right? So what is very interesting, and actually I consider this to be somewhat uplifting news, is that you have hold on, let me just add getting right away.
Those ads.
Here it is. This is good. This is like uplifting news in terms of like it shows how decent people could be. Families of the 9/11 victims urge Biden to direct the $3.5 billion worth of frozen assets to the people of Afghanistan. This is their money, not ours. This is exactly what we covered. You had the insane psychopathic Biden administration who was praised for pulling out Afghanistan, and I never praised him because I'm like, all right, what's your next plan for these people, right? And it was this. It was to steal their assets, which is leading to there was a story that showed 13,000 infant kids, and this was months ago. God knows what the number is now. I read this report in like June, where 13,000 infant kids have died of hunger because the mothers literally was so malnourished they couldn't produce breast milk and formula because sanctions not a thing there. So Biden policy directly led to 13,000 infants dying. 23 million Afghans are food insecure. But Marianne Williamson didn't want us to pull out Afghanistan because of the Afghan women. You know that she ain't mentioned anything about that now. So
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, she's also for the 40 billion to Ukraine.
Of course. But you have any reaction, anything you want to add to the Afghanistan story? Because this is what we've been keeping our eye on, and it's great that the families of the 9/11 victims are saying this is ridiculous. Because the idea you're going to take the money from Afghanistan when, correct me if I'm wrong, but like 16 out of 18 of the 9/11 attackers were from Saudi Arabia. It's such a sin on so many levels. It's just glad I know Biden not going to listen, even though the people are literally calling Biden to end the genocide. He's not going to listen. This friend of the show, Caitlin Johnstone, she says, virtually everyone who knows anything about the issue wants Biden to stop starving people in Afghanistan. There have been human rights groups that have been calling for it. The U.S. just don't listen. And she said, even people who stand to benefit materially from their starvation, and he just won't. Jim Crow Joe just won't. So, Matt, do you have any response, anything you want to add to that story before we wrap up here?
Well, I think the situation, what I'm hearing from people I know who have been there or who are involved with relief organizations, is the situation's worse than we're being told. I mean, it's like a Yemen level of decimation. And it's the result of 20 years of U.S. occupation. This country was destabilized, destroyed. And then the U.S., which said that it was there to help and save Afghan women and children, will not allow them to be helped unless it's on U.S. terms. So the U.S. has frozen assets to Afghanistan's central bank. I mean, if your central bank assets are frozen, you cannot do business within the SWIFT transfer system that governs the world economy. You are frozen. The U.S. has frozen Afghanistan out of the world economy because the country, a majority of its people, ousted the U.S. I mean, none of us agree with the Taliban or have any affinity for the Taliban, but it was popular in large parts of Afghanistan. It succeeded because of popular support. And the Afghan army that the U.S. was maintaining was a complete ghost army. It barely even existed. I mean, it was completely fake. And that's why Kabul fell so quickly and the U.S. had to run with its tail between its legs. And this is another failure of the media. They're not telling us about this catastrophic man-made humanitarian crisis brought on by U.S.
Biden's line. I literally seen like they don't cover it a lot, but you guys know I like to see what the opposition is saying. I see them cover this story and they just repeat what the Biden. They said, well, technically we hold this money because we can't trust the Taliban with it, and we want to hurt the Taliban government. And then there was reports on the ground. There was this Afghan business owner who's explained he lost his business because he couldn't withhold funds. The reason why I'm sharing you guys that is because policy is hurting ordinary Afghan citizens, business owners. And then the Biden administration said, well, we're doing this to fight Taliban. Then the mainstream media come out like, oh, yeah, the Biden administration is doing this to fight the Taliban. That's the understanding of war. But go ahead, Max.
Yeah, and I mean, Afghanistan is also strategically located. It is, proximate to China and Russia, the two competitors of the U.S., and they are not going to treat the Taliban in the same manner. They're going to deal with Afghanistan on its terms. And so this will ultimately further weaken U.S. empire as the whole sanctions regime that is punishing something like 1/3 of all of humanity right now. I think 1/3 of the world's population lives in a country that is being sanctioned by the U.S. And that's ultimately going to blow back on the U.S. It already is. We can see it very clearly with the cost of living crisis, the dark winter that Europe is entering, Germany with the Green Party in power, bringing its coal-fired power plants back online because it's cut off Russian fuel, the U.S. going to Venezuela, which it is sanctioned and where it's pushed regime change to try to negotiate an oil deal for Chevron because the Russian oil that accounted for something like 10% of the U.S. energy market is not coming anymore. The U.S. can't manage all of this. The problem is that the Afghan people are collateral and millions could die as a result of this. Excess deaths, people dying in silence. So, I mean, we're going to try to do more on it at the Grayzone, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think this is something we need more attention on. It's hard enough to get attention to issues like Palestine or Yemen.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I cover it, because it's such a massive humanitarian issue. And like you said, we probably don't even know the truth of the devastation that's going on there. And just like the Ukrainians who they want to sacrifice, you just said they want to sacrifice the Afghanistan people. That's the modus operandi of the United States. China goes and builds, the U.S. go pointing the gun at them and demand them do what they're doing, right? So I appreciate you coming on, Max. It's always great. There's so much we could cover, but I don't want to keep you here forever. It's always great having these conversations. Always very therapeutic as well. Anything else you want to add? Anything you want to promote? Anything else you want to round this conversation with?
No, I mean, we got some incredible new reports up at thegrayzone.com. So just check it out. And this is always therapeutic for me. This is probably I think this is the only live stream I've done all week. So it felt good at the end of the week to be able to get all this off my chest and engage with your audience. I think there's a strong overlap there. So look for us next week at the Grayzone. We're going to do a live stream, me and Aaron Mate.
Nice.
So
nice. We need to get
there
on the show as well. Always good to riff foreign policy and our critiques of the boutique left as well. So, thank you for coming on, Max. I'm gonna just read the last few of these super chats. I'm gonna pop you out here. Thank you for your time once again, Max. Always great to talk to Max Blumenthal. Make sure you guys follow his work in the Grayzone. I learned a lot about reading the Grayzone. They got very adversarial foreign policy coverage. And when you see like people like Jenk Uygur attack Max Blumenthal, like whenever I see people have like there's certain people like the Grayzone. Like if you attack the Grayzone, you lose a ton of credibility. Like you can have criticism, but when you're going around calling them Putin puppets for his very accurate, fact-based coverage, that's stuff that like they're not infighting, they're not left infighting. You are literally imperialist. You are a tool of the establishment at this point. So I'll just read the last few super chats I didn't get a chance to. And then Savvy got her live stream on RBN in 30 minutes. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe this live stream. And then in 30 minutes, we got more content from Savvy Savs coming up. So thank you for the 199, Lorenz. Thank you, RBN, for what y'all do. No, I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, sharing, liking, and subscribing, because we all know the algorithm has not been friendly to us. You guys have been helping us out a lot, so I appreciate you guys. Thank you for the $10, Ike Kennedy. Love the support for you with you guys. And there's also another solidarity super chat, and this one as well. So a lot of support from you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Once again, Savvy Sabs on RBN in 30 minutes. So we got more content coming as always. And expect a lot of great clips that came from this live stream, especially with my conversation with Kit, Cabello, and Max Blumenthal. That was really fun. I had so much stuff I could talk to Max about. You guys know I'm a foreign policy nerd. So having the Grayzone people on is always great. It's always great to talk to people who are so well informed on these issues. I can go all day. Like we literally could have gone all day, but we know Max is a busy guy. So thank you guys for watching. This was our Super Friday live stream. Have a great one, guys. Take care.